Hello! It's a miracle. According to YouTube, I'm live, so hello. That's the good news.
Yes, you're live.
Excellent. The bad news... I checked everything was working earlier today. It was fine. Just plugged my iPad in and said, sorry about that. Not going to be able to do whatever you want with your iPad today, not until you've run a software update. Like, thanks for that. That's fantastic.
It's like an iOS 14 update.
I'm hoping it's not that catastrophic. Probably I need the update because of that, but it was fine earlier today. So I've said download it. Where you go, strut your stuff, and we'll see how we get on. Let's see how we get on with that. That's not good. I hate it when it does that. No matter how many times you prep and you test everything, there's always something else not quite right. But how is everybody doing? That's what I need to know. How are you all doing? Let me know in the chat. I'm also quickly looking at this, and I've actually got some extra bits and pieces that have not made it into the introductory slide. And I could either sit and look at that, or I could talk to you guys. So I think I'll talk to you guys. So I'm already apprised we have a full complement of Debs, which is a fantastic start. Right, so hello Debbie, hello Deb, hello Kim. Oh, all of the Debs.
And a full complement of mics.
And a full complement of mics. How are we doing for polls?
A full complement of Pauls, apparently.
Oh, excellent. You know what we're missing?
A full complement of Lolas.
Oh, no, she's outside. She's herded me back in.
Right.
She does like to know where we are in the evening. So I just disappeared out onto the landing and she's just herded me back into the office. No, we have no Jonathans, but more on that later. We have no complement of Jonathans. Well, not that I'm aware. If you're a Jonathan, let me know.
Kim says she's not live.
I am live. I am. You're telling me I'm live. Are you lying to me, Mike?
No, I heard you.
No, I'm live. I am, honest. I can see things bouncing and everything. I am. I swear I am. Right, who else have we got?
I've told Kim
Debbie,
to do a refresh.
We've got Graham. Hello, Graham. There's Deborah. There's the full complement of Debs. We have a Paul. We have Paul Murphy. Do you know we've got now 3 Pauls, 4 Pauls? The Pauls will be topping the Debs at this rate. Oh, my.
Now Kim's live. There we go.
Excellent. I was. And Paul Conaway. Yes, you are all here. Fantastic.
You've not missed anything, Kim. We were just doing a name check.
Everybody is checked in. This is what I like. Let's make sure you can see my desktop. That's always a good start. Blue desktop incoming right
Debbie
now.
had the same problem.
It's clearly YouTube having another
Or
moment.
a software update.
Yet another moment. Now, before anybody asks, yes, the screen is set to the right resolution, and yes, I have pressed record. All downhill from there then. But that's my desktop. Let's make sure that you can see the slides. Yay, you can see the slides, as far as I know. Now, anything could happen after this moment, because that update's still running. If it tells me I need to reboot, we are so done. We are so done. So we'll see how that goes. But hello and welcome. That was quite a long easy tonight. It's usually after that something goes wrong. What have we got? Well, we've actually got lots more that isn't even on there. But it was late additions, what can I say? But we have had a Notion update. This one's weird. Just as weird as the last one. In terms of not mentioned. Not mentioned. But it's there, so we'll have a look. Evernote, on the other hand, oh, that's been mentioned many, many times. They've been working on it for quite a while, and it's here for us to have a look at. So we will indeed be having a look at it. Then we've got creating artwork with Affinity Designer, which is leading us nicely into project number 13. But it's separate from project number 13 because it can be standalone. How do you start creating a piece of artwork? So we've looked at quite a few of the features before, but we've never actually dragged them all together and said, well, this is the process and this is what you need to do. So that's what we'll be doing. Then I've got some lovely freebies, really liking those this week. And then Mike is going to perform magic with his Magic MacBites shows dashboard. We've had a ball today when he said, do you know?
I prefer Magic MacBites Flapjack myself.
Yes, but this is fun. This is fun. It's using data in a meaningful way where Mike can say, did you know? And the answer to this is probably no. And he'll then impart a piece of wisdom to me regarding MacBites, which has been fantastically fun. So that we've got that. And then we have project number 13, which we're starting completely from scratch. It involves DEVONthink and lots of other things. But that's for later. For the moment, make sure that you are watching in HD. We broadcast in HD, but YouTube, 50-50 what you'll see. So make sure that you go down to the cog in the bottom right-hand corner and click 720p. Also, while you're down there, if you find anything useful, give us a like, give us a thumbs up. Really makes a difference with YouTube. But how did the week go? Not bad. Not bad, to be honest. We started on Saturday. Usually when we catch up and stuff, but now we're doing our music shows on a very regular basis. We had 8 shows to deal with on Saturday. Not the least of which was the Brooklyn Spy request, which was places. Oh, we had a ball, didn't we?
We certainly did.
Now then, of course, we usually have a shopping delivery, don't we? But Mike was upset. So Mike used an analogy, didn't you?
I'm saying nothing.
He goes on to Tesco to find out they haven't got everything.
Before you tell this story, Kim read the slide as Magic Mike.
Which is a whole different show, just saying.
But it's kind of related to what you're about to say.
Sort of, yes. He puts the order in with Tesco's as usual and finds out half of it's missing. So he calls on Asda, which is fine until the reason he'd called on Asda was the one thing that was missing was mainly the strawberries. But the problem was, this is why he placed the extra order, isn't it?
Yeah.
For the missing strawberries. But he said he'd arranged both these deliveries for Saturday night between 9 and 10 and then said to me, is it bad form to have the wife and mistress coming round at the same time? Very, very dodgy analogy there, Mike. Anyway, discretion and valour got the better of him and he moved the wife, Tesco, to Sunday, which meant the lack of strawberries on Saturday was going to be remedied on Sunday, wasn't it?
Was going to be
When Tesco's turned up. But when the wife rocked up, still no strawberries. The hunt continues in the midst of a global strawberry shortage. Do you know, at least it wasn't, well, I actually much preferred it when it was the lettuce that was missing, because the strawberries are actually quite nice.
We had some strawberries left from last week, which were okay. So we managed to eke them out this week. I think you ended up with one tiny strawberry in your fruit salad.
I did.
Yes.
I did. I remember it well. Yes. Anyway, never mind. We were on to Monday. Monday was the calm before the storm. Spent the whole of Monday deep in RSS feeds and stuff as to what we could expect on Tuesday. Oh, I missed an opportunity here to put in a 3-show.
Oh, yeah.
3-show day. Yeah, because it was 3-show Tuesday. It was the Apple event, and we started with Marooned 3 hours earlier than usual. And then we moved into the MacBites Live at 5 o'clock. We then, very begrudgingly, because we were having a ball, handed over to Apple for 6 o'clock, thinking we could be with them for quite some time. Turned out to be just an hour. Literally to the minute, just an hour. And that included repeats. But we then went back and had another chat afterwards. So at just over an hour, there's clearly scope for another one in October. So don't do anything silly like Mike and book things for October, because there will be another event. Which took us on to Wednesday. One of the surprising things that happened on Tuesday was that instead of the usual, I mean, there was the watch, there was various other bits and pieces, but the most significance was iOS 14, yeah, it'll be tomorrow. And we were like, when? Tomorrow? It's usually a Friday. So they can shut down their support for the weekend and leave you hanging. But we were poised. We had already decided if it's iOS 14 day, we'll do it live. We'll do it live on Marooned. It didn't even surface till 9 o'clock that night. So 3 hours later than usual. But on the upside, it doesn't take that long anymore. Having said that, it used to take 7 hours. This was my old iPhone 7, which I was prepared to sacrifice on the funeral pyre that could have ended up as being iOS 14. It wasn't fast in the update department. So while it was strutting its stuff, I moved on to doing the iPads in batches. Batches of 3, I think. Seriously, I did. They went much quicker, even though the one at the back... is it the one at the back? No, it's the one at the front on the next one. So those are the first 3 that I did. That's my 11-inch, my 10.5-inch, and an iPad Pro from 20... possibly 15 or 16. Can't remember. But this one was my oldest one. The one at the front was indeed my oldest one. 2014. And they all went pretty quickly. As you can see, I'd stocked up on tea by then. And yes, Kim, that's a straw. I always drink tea through a straw. I have no intention of staining these teeth. Ever. So I did the next 3. And then before I knew it, I was on to the last 3. That one at the front is my 12.9-inch. And every one went rather well. It's quite alarming, isn't it? Because I was waiting for the other foot to fall. One of them usually ends up bricked. But no, everything was fine. They were sharing a cable, as you can see, but everything went okay. Apart from the fact that now I'm trying to actually use one of them, now the computer needs an update. But, into every life. So by Thursday, all that time I'd had on Wednesday night, while I'm sat there with none of my equipment actually working because it was all updating, meant I had time to do other things. And this was a moment worth capturing. No emails in the inbox. Yeah, I captured it because it doesn't happen often. Seriously, this is like a 1 day in a year thing that it assured me it was all done. In fact, it was such a shock to its system that one of the iPads insisted I still had about 60 mails in there. To the point, even rebooting the iPad did no good. I ended up having to uninstall the app and reinstall it before it agreed with me that actually there were no emails in the inbox. So captured for posterity. Which, of course, takes us on to today, when it is Two Show Friday. But we're missing something. I said I'd use this, didn't I? We're missing Jonathan. But he will be watching on Catch Up very soon. So hello to future Jonathan. Say hello to him in the chat, because the chat plays back in real time. It'll be like he was here. Right, so first new thing
we
this
have
week.
another new person in the MacBites family.
Do we?
Yes, Laurie.
Hello, Laurie.
Long-time Adobe Illustrator user wanting to transfer and learn this amazing program. I'm presuming he's talking about Affinity something.
Or she. Is it Laurie? L-O-R-I?
Laurie.
That's probably a guy then. But you never know. And it doesn't matter either way.
No.
But hello. Good to have you with us. Which is very comical, because look what I'm starting with. Yes, Adobe Illustrator for iOS. It's been promised or threatened for a while, depending on how you look at it, at least a year. I got the email because there was a beta program I was involved in. It's now available for pre-order. There is a reason, and this all pulls together rather neatly, but it's quite a way off at the moment. It is in the store available to have a look at, but not, well, to pre-order, but not buy. It's going to be made available, it is expected, the 21st of October. And you will get it a day early if you pre-order. Now, on the good news front, it is free. On the bad news front, obviously to get the very best out of it, it's a good idea to have a Creative Cloud subscription. But that's it, it's available. Now, why advertise it so far in advance? Well, they mentioned that first, and then they went on to mention the fact that Adobe Max is coming. And Adobe Max is, it used to be an in-person conference. I believe it's online only this year. So usually there's a huge hall and they do relay it live every year. And it's Adobe's biggest event. But it's online this year. And it's between the 20th and the 22nd of October. So knowing that this is coming out, on the 21st, that is bang in the middle of it. So that's why they're leaving it till that date. It's also why they can allow you to have it a day early, because Max is actually starting on the 20th of October. So I've put a link in for Mike to share with you in the chat if you want to register for Adobe Max. As I say, it's usually at least a 2 or 3 day thing with lots of sessions, training sessions, keynotes. There's usually 2 big keynotes, and they will be advertising and sharing with you the latest and greatest features in Adobe Creative Cloud. But as Laurie is saying, moving on to something else.
Talking of online conferences, you know what's on next week?
Ignite. Microsoft Ignite. Yes. But they're probably less interested in that than they are Adobe.
Oh.
Do you know what we need? An online Affinity summit. That's what we need.
Yeah.
But, we mention that because anything that comes out of their tutorials and stuff, they translate nicely to Affinity. There are differences, but there's probably more similarities than differences. So we always like to go along. And anyway, if the reception for Illustrator on the iPad is anything like Photoshop on the iPad, put your tin hat on. It didn't end well. They've got a very, very high bar to meet, haven't they, with the Affinity apps? Which, it's I know they've been trying for 10 years, but it's virtually a first release. So it's not probably going to end well. So you know what we should do to celebrate? Put another session on for Affinity for iPad.
Good idea.
They're my most watched videos. People love that. Right, but first of all, there's been a Notion update. No, not that one. It's been that long. I would not be upset if you said which one. Fair question. It's been a while. It was this image that was released last year. In fact, if you look at that, look at the date, July 2019. The tweet was actually posted on the 31st of July 2019. And what it's showing you is a Gantt chart view, a timeline view within a table. Now, it said, the timeline coming soon. When they said soon, I didn't think they meant over a year. I'll be honest with you. Normally, when you get a little bit of a preview like that, we're talking weeks. We're not talking in years. No matter how bad 2020's been, let's be honest, they had a good 7 to 8 months before all this mess happened. And there's still no sign of that. So it's not that. Okay, that was the first thing to think about. It's not the timeline. But let's go in and have a look at it. In fact, if you remember 2 weeks ago, this was MacBites After Hours 92, I said there'd been a secret update. And the secret update was the Backlinks update, which you all seem to quite like. This is to do with that. But what's really strange is, yet again, there has been another update to Notion, and they've not actually said, here's the update to Notion, and this is what you can now do with it, which is the weirdest thing of all. But it's there, and you might see it, and you might want to know what to do with it. So I will show you what you can do with it. Okay, so let me get into here and get my notes up and start sharing with you. So somewhere, let's get a Firefox window and let's get into Notion, and then I can share it with you. I think we'll start with a blank page. That would be a good start, wouldn't it? Okay, and let's go full screen with it. Right, there's nothing in terms of the interface to actually see and do and have a look at. Okay, it's all what happens when you're in there. And if you remember, the first thing we looked at was actually the backlinks and what backlinks do. And they are happening automatically. So first of all, in here, we will put in MacBites After Hours, and it's 194. So that's our page. Right, inside a page, you are probably aware of all the things that you can actually put inside a page. Now, if you wanted to embed another page, then traditionally this is what you've done. And there's a couple of ways of doing it. The impact is exactly the same, but I'll show you the different ways. First of all, you could use the / command and type page and then press enter. And that actually takes you down a level into another page. So this one is a sub page. And we'll even put inside MacBites After Hours 94. In fact, did I put the whole number? 194. There we go. And you can use your breadcrumbs at the top to see that that is indeed a page embedded inside the top level page. So that's one way of doing it. Put the / command in, type, it will take you into the page, type a title, come back up to this level. If you don't want to disrupt your workflow quite so much, maybe you're creating 4 or 5 pages within this page, then there is a quicker way to do it, which would be to type the title of the page. So if we wanted another subpage, are you going to cough all night while I'm talking? And now I've got one word and it should be 2. Right, another subpage inside MacBites, after hours 194. Now at the moment that's just text. But if you use the shortcut key, which on a Mac is Command Option 9, and on a PC is Control and Option and 9, that will actually turn it into a page without you having to move from here. So that's a much quicker way. Always presupposing you don't actually want to put any content on the page down below. Okay? So it's just a faster way of doing it if you're adding multiple pages. That's pretty much what we had. This next bit is slightly different, but let's say we want to mention a page. So I would like a link on this page, maybe to another page. So maybe week 37 of my weekly action guides. Then what I could do is put the @ and that then lists underneath some dates, some people who are in your space, and links to pages. So the first link it actually offers you is to this page. The second link it's offering you says Flight Deck, which if you look on the left, is the next page down in my organisation. So my thing's fairly simple on the left-hand side. So that's what it's offering you, but I want to put a link in there to week 37. So I don't have to start putting in capital W, capital A, capital G. I can literally in there just put week 37. And if I give it long enough to have a think about it, and that wasn't long at all, was it? Then it comes up as the first option. But there's also week 37 from last year. But that's precise enough, which is why I name things the way I name them, that when I want to refer to a page, I can just do that. Now, what I've got at that point, the top 2 are pages that are subpages of this page. This one is a link to another page, but that page is not embedded inside this page. It actually lives up here. In fact, it's a database. So this page itself, if I click on that and we go into it, if you look at the breadcrumbs at the top, it's inside my worksheets, inside Engine Room. And then I've got all my stuff down there that I'm doing this week. Or was that last week? Oh, that's last week. Lovely, that's last week. Should be this week. Where's my head this week? Anyway, that's just showing you that it's actually a link to a page. It's not embedded in this page. Okay, so what does all this mean for you with these changes? Well, nothing's changed in terms of you've got to now work a different way. You can see from that all the original ways of working are still there, but you now have some optional extras, shall we say. They've added some extra magic in. Right, so let's say we're working along here and I'm thinking, and it could be anywhere this, so let's imagine, rather than doing it, we'll put meeting notes. So let's say Mike and I are making some notes about stuff we want to cover in future episodes. So in fact what we could put there is future content, change that to a heading 2, and then start adding some stuff in. Right, so let's say Mike decides it's a good idea to cover, what did I say we could cover from last week? From this week that we could cover next week? Oh, I know. If this, then that. Right, so let's say Elaine suggested covering, and I now want to mention this thing that I want to do, which is called If This Then That. But I'm going to want to make some notes about that, and I don't particularly want the notes that I'm going to make about it in here that I've then got to copy and paste somewhere else at some other point. So one option is if in here I think, well, I want this to be a page. You might think, well, use the @ key. That's how you @ mention a page, right? But if I @mention, the page has to exist, and the page does not exist. So this new thing that they've got, if you've ever used Rome, you're going to sit there and go, really? Looks like Rome. It does. Right, if I use double brackets, I can start typing something. So if this, then that. And you'll see that I've got some options at the bottom. So it says plus, new, if this then that subpage, or a new, if this then that page in. So let's look at the top one for a start. The top one's saying, make me a new page nested in this page right now. So I could actually choose that. And now I've created a page on the fly in the next show, which is, and the next show would be, we'll add that, and that would be 0195. And it should find that eventually. It might need the after hours. No, there we go. MacBites shows, that's MacBites 135. I'm looking for 195. Come on, 195's in there. I know it is. Let's find it. Oh, don't tell me it can't find 195. Oh, that's not good. Oh, it can't. Right, okay, let's go back a bit and let's put after hours 0195. It's not having a good time at the moment, is it? Right, after hours. Come on, 0195. You gonna find it or not? Makes a great demo when you can't, doesn't it? No, you're looking for 95 and 105. Crying out loud. It's in there. Honestly, it is. And it's not finding it for some reason. Probably everybody's trying this at the moment, but you get the idea. I would be adding a page within some text, but the difference between that and the one that I've created, the if this then that, is that one page would have existed and the other one didn't. So that's the difference. Okay. But it can get even better than that. So what I'm going to do to demonstrate this is I'm actually going to put a table in. And I'm going to put this table in line in this page so you can actually see it happen. And let's say we want this to be show ideas. I don't think we've got one called that. So this is our show idea table. Now, Patricia's with us. She likes Affinity. So shall we put it? Which is your favourite Affinity
She loves
product?
you as well.
Oh, she loves me as well. Yeah. Fabulous. That's lovely. Thank you. Let's say Affinity Photo first. So something Affinity Photo-ish. And that means we can put in Affinity Designer in the next one. And in the third one, let's have finish the 3. Affinity Publisher. I could add another one. Affinity brackets Lightroom. Give me a digital asset manager, please. It's on the way, but we don't know when. Okay, so I've got some elements in that table. Now, that table would probably live somewhere else because that's the best practice. Don't work with the underlying table. Okay. My tables would live in our engine room. There's all kinds of tables in the engine room in there. Usually there's the MacBites engine room, which is nested even further. And these are all our tables that are in there. But let's get back to having it on one page so you can actually see it happen. Kim's having problems with it not finding the page. There are things you can do if it can't find the page. I wasn't going to fiddle around with it, but let's say we wanted, say tonight's page. So I want to put a link to tonight's in. One thing I can do is just copy the link from the URL. I can go up here and I can copy the link. And what that means is when I'm back in this page, instead of trying to mention it or whatever, I can paste it in and then say put a link to the page in and do it that way. You can do it that way. But it's having a moment. Last night was fabulous. It was finding everything in 2 seconds flat. I can only assume there's a lot more people discovering and playing with this right now. But we're going to look at this table. All right, I want the table at the bottom to show you what you can now do. So let's get back to the fact Mike and I were having a meeting, which usually involves ice cream. So I actually quite enjoy that. So let's say that Mike suggested doing blend modes in Affinity Photo. So I could put in here, Mike suggested covering blend modes.
Whenever you say that, you know what it reminds me of?
Oh, yeah.
Does it blend?
We actually did a session called Will It Blend? It's about 6 years ago. People love the title. Right, I've just deleted that because obviously what I actually needed to do was this. Open up my brackets and start typing in, let's say, mastering blend modes in Affinity Photo. Now, because I used the plus, the brackets, the square brackets to start this off, and you can see I actually already have a mastering blend modes in Affinity Photo coming up, just don't have a date for it. But that was because I was hanging around. But what I actually want to show you is at the bottom, we're interested in these two. Adding as a subpage, which we've already seen, or the bottom one. And the bottom one is even more important. I would like that suggestion to appear in the Show Ideas table. And we've not had a way up to now from your meeting notes to actually add it straight to a table. But now you can, and that's what the option at the bottom is. So I will go in there, and it needs to know where I want to put it. So I then type in the name of the database, which in this case is Show Ideas, and there is what we need. So Show Ideas. And because this database was on the same page, you saw what it did. And it actually added it straight to the Show Ideas. So now while we're in our meetings, which Kim is calling the Magnum meeting. I quite like that. Oh, yes. I can add it straight to the table, straight to the Show Ideas. So whilst we're pondering that one, there was also the other one, which was the next live stream is going to be... Now, I do already have this in here, but I'm just going to call it something shorter, which is export persona in Affinity Designer. And I want to add that as a page in the Show Ideas table, which is at the bottom. So you look at the bottom, when it finds the Show Ideas, I press enter and boom, it appears in the table automatically. And it wouldn't matter if that table was on this page or elsewhere. It doesn't matter where it is. That should give you some indication that maybe think carefully about what you're calling the tables. Just think about it. And what you could do if they are your core underlying tables, you could put ER at the beginning for engine room or something like that. I tend to leave them as they are. But I do name things carefully to start with. But basically, the new feature is that you can add items both in terms of nested pages with the square brackets, and you can add them to a table with the square brackets. You can also shortcut even that by putting a plus at the beginning and then put new page. And the plus will allow you to add a subpage, or you can create a new page in. So if I go to new page in and then put Show Ideas, find the Show Ideas again, eventually I press enter and there's the new page. So plus is another way of doing it, just another way of doing it. Now, in relation to the backlinks that we looked at last week, right, if we go into one of these items, so we'll go into mastering the blend modes, you can see that your backlinks are in here and that this was discussed in the meeting on a certain date. So it's automatically backlinked to it. She's rather cool, isn't it? And you can actually get to it clicking the backlink, which will take you there. If you've, let me know in the chat, has anybody seen Rome, used Rome, interested with Rome, any kind of way? This is what Rome does. I will say, Notion have clearly added it because they must have had on their agenda this time last year the timeline view. Still waiting, crickets. But what they have done is take a lot of the linking ideas from Notion and bring that into here, which is great if you're using Notion and you understand linking and how linking could work. But for those people using Rome, they're laughing their socks off at this because Rome works in a totally different way. There's no concept of structure with it, databases and all that kind of stuff. You could say they've taken the best of Rome and added it, your mileage is going to vary with a feature like this, but Kim likes it. So we've got to like before we get any going. We get going at the moment, which is good. I can certainly see. I think my main use for it would be where I type in a meeting, and I make a note to myself to create that later. Now I don't need to, because I can actually type it in and it will create that item elsewhere, but leave me where I am to actually carry on with my train of thought, which is the power of Rome. That is the power of Rome. Now, Deborah says, had a look at Rome, not enough traction at the time available for me to persevere with it. I already have structure. Right, so Patricia says, I'm seeing good morning and I'm having my Friday afternoon wine. Oh, excellent, excellent. What I would say with Rome is fantastic, but you have to be the type of character where you can relax with the wine, like Patricia, and go with the flow. And if structure is important to you, then no, it's not really going to be for you. So if you think about what we have in here with MacBites, fold that up so we can have a wider view.
Where's my Friday evening wine?
No idea, you didn't get it. You can't see this brilliantly. Let me see if I can just do that. That's better. Right, this is our dashboard. So it's got my backlinks in it from my stuff. That's why it says private. No one else can see those. And this is how we track all the show and stuff. So if you want structure, Rome's not really there for you in that kind of way. But Notion is. So I use both. In the same way as I use a knife and a fork rather than a spear to eat with. It just makes sense to me. But that's the big update that they've got. So thinking about it, the square bracket thing, I think, is there for compatibility with Rome, because you can achieve exactly the same with the plus. So you could just plus add something. But who likes that one? Who's going to use that? Let me know. Let me know while we move on and look at other stuff. But that is coming on top of the backlinks feature. So really, when we looked at the backlinks, what's now explained is they hadn't officially added it to their list of features because this other half of it was coming along and it obviously wasn't ready at that point. If you're interested in how I would actually particularly use that, if we look at my week 37, which was last week, not this week, because I don't know whether I'm coming or going. Down here, I have dates, and I manually put these dates in, and each one is linking out to a page in my journal. Oh, there's one missing for Friday. That's fabulous. That was the 11th. So what I would do with that is @reference it. So in here, what date was it? The 11th of September 2020. And you can see it's offering me a new subpage, a new page in here, but it will come up with a journal page, which is the 11th of September. And I can just do that. So that's where I actively use this. Actively use it. And it does work really well for that. And I use it in the Week at MacBites headquarters as well. So I have, it's a single page, and it has in it, in fact, can I create one? Probably not easily at the moment. It's all hooked up with databases and magic buttons. But it has Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday through to Sunday. No dates next to it. And I whip through and I put the dates next to it. And that way I can fly around Notion. But you actually have to put the links in yourself. Now, if that was in Rome, you wouldn't. The links would just be there. It's like magic. But Rome looks nothing like this. Rome is text-based, and you would take one look at it and think, I have no idea where to start with that. So to me, the two are totally different. But some people interchange one for the other. Well, it just depends on how you actually use it. Okay, so if there's any questions about that, sling it in there. But for the moment...
Patricia said this is looking very cool.
Yeah, I did do a session on how I built it. It's actually changed so much, to be honest. I'll probably do... We did Notion 2020, so I think we need a Notion 2021, don't we? But we are intending to move on and have a look at Evernote. Whether that's possible or not depends on how my iPad feels. Before, they weren't talking to each other. So we'll see how that works out. But I can do the background on it anyway. Right, Evernote 10 for iOS is out. You might think, so what? Evernote's a dinosaur. Evernote still has a place. It's very good at what it does. The thing was, it hit a brick wall. You may remember all the talk in the autumn of 2018 that Evernote is in a death spiral. And this was because half the board walked out. In fact, about 80% of the board walked out. And literally every day you were reading somebody else had left and somebody else had left. And it did leave people feeling very nervous. Not that it would go away tomorrow, but that it wouldn't be there in a year or 2 years. Well, obviously we are 2 years on and Evernote is still there. Now, what happened after this death spiral was that this gentleman took over. This is Ian Small, and he was the new CEO. A new broom with a root and branch review of the state of the Evernote Union. And he decided to do a couple of things. One has only just come to fruition right now. And that is Evernote needed a redesign and a rebuild from the bottom up. And that he put in place. It's taken 2 years. This first release for iOS is the fruit of that labour. The second thing he did was on the Evernote YouTube channel. There were already quite a lot of stories and videos and stuff, but he brought in this, which is Evernote behind the scenes. Now, it started about, he probably does about one a month on average. So there's 15 videos, and he's probably been doing it for about the last 18 months. The videos got very scarce after the COVID thing, but I thought they were fascinating, absolutely fascinating. There's a whole playlist of them there, and they were all behind the scenes, either interviews or just explaining their logic. You can see from the set that they're using that they've actually got all of the design stuff behind them. And they were really very much giving you a behind the scenes look that we'd never had anything like it before. Because what Evernote would do is they would release stuff and it'd be like, whoa, what happened with that? It doesn't look anything like the last version of Evernote. And people wondered upon what basis they'd redesigned the interface. And I've just said this is Evernote 10. The redesign of the interface, honestly, were like every single time. And people who were happy with how it was were not happy with the newer one. So to give you this behind the scenes look, they've eventually bought themselves 18 months of people knowing what was coming and why it was coming and what the idea behind the design was and what was behind the architecture that needed updating and really why it was taking as long as it was taking. And people calmed down. And in doing that, he got past this death spiral thing and people have stopped talking about the imminent demise of Evernote. Now, Evernote 2 days ago looked like that. And that was, like I say, probably about the 8th or 9th iteration of Evernote. And that one is the iPad. The iPhone's fairly similar. I've simplified it a bit, but everything is there. And if you know your way around that, then you'll love it. And if you use Evernote all day, every day, you'll probably love it. It started off with the big green plus button, and that's where you would start a new note. Now, my problem with this was that bar that's on the left is there permanently. It doesn't disappear. It's there all the time in the way. It doesn't go up to the top. It doesn't go down to the bottom. And a lot of it is blank. They never did add anything to it. Which, when you look at the whole interface in terms of let's analyse it, makes no sense. Because although that's make me a new note, so's that, which is the camera button, make me a new camera note, or make me a new audio note, or let me scribble a note, or let me add an attachment and make a note. There's space for those 4 buttons on that grey bar. What are they doing down there? Now, you could say, it's because those items down there could be inserted into the current note that you're using. Then it makes more sense. But just looking at it, if you want to make a note and you want that to be a camera thing, then you're going to have to make a blank note first and then you're going to have to add it to it. Then you've got navigation for notebooks and search and your favourites and anything that's shared. But basically, interface, it's all over the place. There's the tags. You've got your reminders. You've got the ability to share with people. You can put a reminder on it there. So multiple places to do things, and that's where you get your info. So there was a whole lot of interface going on, and that's what they set out to simplify, which I am hoping, manfully, I will be able to show you. Let's see if it's going to let me do that. If it's not, this isn't going to be the best demo in the world, is it? Let's have a look. I've plugged my iPad in. It's not said no. That's a good start. Let's see if QuickTime is going to play ball with me. Are you thinking about starting up? Oh, you're having a think about it. That's always good to know. Right, let's try a screen recording, and let's choose my iPad and hope for the best. I don't see my iPad. Let's have a look if I can persuade it. I've got a whole lot of devices, but they are all audio devices. Honestly, Apple, really? Not doing it, not doing it. Good evening, Pete. Do you want to waft some magic beans over this for me? Let's give it one more go, and then if that doesn't work, we'll try plan B. No, it's not playing along. Okay, be like that. Let's see if we can do it a different way. Loathe using Air Server myself, but you know, if it works, we'll go with it. Right. Air Server being a different way of sharing it. I don't like using it. I would be using screen mirroring with that because it crashes willy-nilly. But let's go for it. Let's see if we can do something. Thinking about it. There we go. Okay. I will attempt to make it bigger and attempt to make it not crash. But we'll see how we go with that. Okay. Let's just stay there. Excellent. Right, so this is the new Evernote. Now if you hear any tap tap tapping like a woodpecker, that's me with my pencil, because I'm going to show the pencil. Right, but this is Evernote. Now it's going to open up and it's going to go to all notes, but I'm going to take it back to notebooks and start you from the notebooks perspective. And this is not a demo account, this is my account. It's actually neat and tidy. It always looks like that. Okay, so from the notebook, so you know what we're looking at before we actually start. I only have one notebook at root level, which is the inbox, which is at the top. I have 4 stacks underneath that, which are projects, areas, resources and archive, which is the para system, if you have ever heard of that. In that stack, now you can only stack one level deep. You can't put a stack inside a stack inside a stack, unfortunately. But stacks came very late to Evernote's life, so it's a wonder it does it at all, to be honest. So if I open up that one, you can see within there I've got the 3 things I'm focusing on at the moment, which is a course I'm doing. Blog 30 has been a while, hasn't it? But it's still there, it's a project. And I'm deploying things at the moment. So all the notes that are in there are to do with projects that I am actually actively working on. Not all the projects I'm working on are in there. And that's because it doesn't make any sense to have an empty notebook. I'm probably working on about 15 different projects, maybe more, which I can actually show you. Did I close that window? The Finder window, the browser window that I had. Let's have a look at if I can find this week instead of showing you last week. Now I need the keyboard back, so give me 1 second while I attempt to navigate my way to where I need to be to actually show you my full complement of projects, which would not be in Evernote. Right, 30, it's week 38, isn't it? Tell me it's week 38. Now I've got week 39. Are you the right week 38? Oh, awesome sauce you are. Right, okay, I'll bring this on and show you. Let's bring it this way, which means that's at the front, so I've got to shift it. Oh, come on. There we go. Right, this is week 38, which is this week. And the reason that I'm so busy is I'm in the middle of this course. So I've got all the stuff that I need to do. But if I show you my weekly projects, these are the projects I've actually been working on this week. This is stuff I need to do this week. That's my full list of projects. But if you think about the Brooklands years 1971. Oh, actually, let me show you this. Oh, they're all done. So that one is complete. Good grief. I can cross stuff off. How fabulous. Right, these 3 are done. So this is what I would do. This is where I manage all my stuff. So those 3 are definitely done. This is why I'm so busy this week. We don't have time to sit and think this week. Right, but those are my projects. But all the music shows, I don't have anything to do with the music shows in Evernote. So there is no project. I'm thinking of Evernote as work in progress, but not stuff that is irrelevant because it's not there. Do you know what I mean? If I've got nothing in Evernote to do with it, then I don't create a notebook for it. But the ones that have content in Evernote already, then they get a project to put them in, a little notebook that I can put them in. Right, then I have areas of focus, stuff that I'm working on. So now this has not been organised at all. I just shoved this in here from when I organised Para. But these are bigger things, and you can see there's a lot more areas than there are projects. So that's the core of the notebooks. And the core idea behind this new Evernote is, if you look at the bottom of that window, even though we are in notebook view, and if there was a new button, you might think, oh, a new notebook. They're trying to make it that it's a one-stop shop for everything. And that this little green lozenge shape at the bottom, it's always going to be there wherever you need it, and you can add a note from any screen in the same way using this at the bottom. So if I just tap on that, we don't need to allow where I am. There's a new note, and straight away you can then start typing in it or use a template or whatever you actually need to do. So let's say I want to use a template. I'm going to look out to the templates gallery, which could take some time, but you know, it might not, you never know. There we go. Oh, how about a weekly review? That's a darn good idea, isn't it? And it's that quick to get a note, and in this case, not just a note, but actually based on a template, so you can now start completing it. But we didn't start life here, we started life actually somewhere totally different. But it's appeared, and it's also appeared in the inbox. So on the title, I would then be looking to put in a weekly review. I have no idea where it keeps coming up with this thing, which is too tiny for my liking, but weekly review. There we go. And I've got my note. It's gone in there. Let's get rid of that. Why have you disappeared down there? Never mind. It's gone into the inbox because that's my default notebook. Okay, but let's go back to where we were. Now, it can also handle from anywhere. So obviously it can do this in the notes, but from anywhere, if it's not just a new note you want, you can tap that up arrow, and again, from anywhere, you have a one-tap access to adding a reminder, creating an audio recording, use a sketch, add an attachment, take a photo, scan a document, or the one that I used, which was the blank document, which is a huge improvement. There was an entire video about how they pulled that together. Now, if it is a notebook you want to create, then you need to look in the upper right hand corner, which is where the add a new notebook is, and you've got your other extras, which is you can create a new notebook, sort by something, or change the notebook settings, and that's available from the top right hand corner. So your notebook settings are which is the default, which I've just shown you, and which ones you want to make available offline. So if you're going to a plane, you know, going on somewhere on a plane, well, those were the days, weren't they? So that's available from the top right. But normally, the way this was designed was that those features were front and centre when you were looking at notebooks, despite the fact you were much more likely to want to take a note. And that's what they've flipped on its head. Now, working with the notes is front and centre, irrespective of where you are. You can search from anywhere. So you've got your search option in the lower right-hand corner. And you've got a burger menu on the left, which shows you your account settings, and it tells you you've been with Evernote since, and mine's April 2008. Gives you direct links to all of your notes, your shortcuts, your notebooks, anything that's shared with you, all of your tags, the work chat, and then the trash. And some of these expand. So if I tap on the expand, you see I've got my inbox. I have no idea why there is a big gap. No more of them. Oh, probably because that's the only notebook I've got in root. All of the others are in subfolders. They are in stacks. But my tags is some of my tags, and you get the full list of tags. You'll notice with my tags, I deploy weird systems here. If it's a previous event, then I use the back bracket. If it's a future event, it's the forward one. If it's MacBites, it's a tilde. If it's the next event, it's equals. If it was the last event that I did, and then I've got this whole thing going on. This was when I actually used Evernote, and I did for many years, to manage all of my live sessions. And I would tag them differently and then fly around it. But point is, you can get to the tags from this particular view, which is floating over the primary view that you have at the back. So if I tap away from that navigation, like that, then it takes me back to where I was before, and I can do a search up there for notebooks if that's what I want to do. Now, let's get on to adding a new note. Well, you've seen adding a plain note, but let's say you want to add something else, like taking a photograph. So it would like to access the camera. Yeah, whatever. No, I don't want you to do that. Access your photos. Select photos. Allow access. Not at the moment. Just sit where you are. So what I've got here is my desk. This is something I'm going to be using in a minute, but it'll do at the moment to take a photo with. So I've taken a photo. You can take some more photos if I want. And then I've got the photos there, and I can just tap save. And they go into my note to create a new snapshot, which is the top one there. There's the first one, and there's the second. And it just adds them in like that. Now, the reason I have this on the desk at all, this is Paolo. This is our second dog. This is a dog we sponsor with Dogs Trust. It used to be Sammy, didn't it? But Sammy passed away. Sammy was 16 though, wasn't he? Had a very good innings, did Sammy?
He did.
And the reason that I've got that on the desk is to show you the next feature, which is, if we go back a bit, we have the option here to scan a document. And you can see there is the document. Now I'm actually picking this up. You're loading, are you? Could you load a bit faster? I don't think you're loading. Looking, it says, but it's not moving. Oh, hang on, here we go. I'm moving this. I've got you right over the top of it. All neat and tidy. Oh, it's struggling. Why are you struggling? I'll tell you what, let's go out again and try it again. Scan a document. There we go. I want you to scan that. Now, at the moment, it's on auto, but it's not working too well. I think it could be because I'm sharing it and it doesn't like it. But basically, that green overlay that you see should be where it's going to take an image from, and it's going to work out where the edges of it should be. Now, at the moment, we're not getting anywhere fast with that. So if I flick it over to photo, and I take a photo of one bit, and then I take a photo of the next bit. Good grief, this is slow. It's got to be because it's plugged in, because it was fine last night. It always is fine when I'm rehearsing, isn't it? And then on the night, you're like, please get on with it. But it doesn't. Can you see it's just the screen that's not updating? Because at the bottom, as I'm taking screenshots, I'm trying to line up by guesswork now. Right, let's say we've got that. Let's flick this back round. Come on, back you come. And I'll save it. Right. So that's going to go into my inbox. Again, it's going to call it snapshot. It's not actually doing what I really wanted it to do, which was save that as a proper document. Instead of it looking like that, it would normally, only because I've got it plugged in and I'm demoing it's not, it would focus in on the bit, the text on the white background. And it would basically scan it. Basically scan it is what it would do. So that was the first photo, and I was guessing, trying to line this up. And there's the second page. And again, it would have done the same thing. Can I show you that? First off, let's make this bigger. This is why I don't like Air Server. It's got a mind of its own when it comes to the screen. Yes, I probably can. Right. What I would have wanted it to do was automatically focus on this bit here and turn it into a proper document scan. And it would have done that if it weren't plugged in demoing for you guys. But that's one way to get the stuff in, isn't it? Right, now I'm going back to my notebooks over here, and you can see that new note comes back. One of the things that they've added, which might be a little bit rough around the edges at the moment, is the start sketching. And it gives you a sketch page. And the first thing you need to do in your sketch page is choose what you are drawing with, which is down the bottom. So you can choose both a size for your pen tip and a colour. So we'll leave it, let's make it blue and let's make it a bit bigger. And then you can start drawing on here. So if we wanted to draw a nice box like that. I find that pen tip quite narrow, to be honest. You can, if you've made a mistake, just flip over and use the eraser. I don't find this is not Notability. This is not good notes, trust me on that. But it's not bad. It's not bad. Let's highlight the edges of the box while we're there. Excellent. And I think that the other one I think I drew a triangle. I've no idea how I managed that. Let's make that much bigger. I think I did it like that. And then that went up there and we had another triangle coming down. Awesome. And once you've done that, there is a few more options in here. So you've got your options at the top where you can snap to a shape. So if we turn that on and I do my triangle, let's see if it can snap it to a shape. It does. I wonder, I bet it can't do it with a circle. Oh, it does. Not bad at all. Let's go for a square. That one should be easier. There we go. So you can snap that on, which is that button there, or it's available in here. Reset your zoom, or you can fit it to the screen. Or you can even clear it all if it's a complete disaster. But let's say it's not a complete disaster, and let's save it. So hitting done will save that to your default notebook, which is my inbox, for your viewing pleasure. So there's the note, and there's the thing on the inside. And I could then go in and start playing around and naming this, which means I've got to bring up this silly little thing. So let's put diagram. My work of art, obviously. So really, with Evernote, have you got any more that we can show you here? Attachments pretty similar. Everything else is pretty obvious, isn't it? But thing to take away from it is, this is what they've released on iOS right now. But this rebuild that they built is sitting underneath it. And it's the core of Evernote that's been updated. So although this is the first version they've released based on this new underlying structure and their new design, it is hoped that every iteration of Evernote on other platforms will look as similar to that as possible. So they have a unified interface. So they brought it out on iOS first, which I guess that's a bigger platform for them than the Mac or Windows or the web. But they're trying to get a unified interface. So what you've seen there tonight, a couple of weeks, when the rest are out, should look like that and should function like that. Let me know in the chat, do you still use Evernote? Good morning, Neil. Is BK there? Good morning, BK, if BK is with you. Let me know if you still use Evernote. I've got 10,500 notes in it, going back to 2008. So although I don't live in Evernote anymore, I wouldn't be in there day to day, I can't imagine. Can you imagine trying to run Marooned, After Hours and MacBites in Evernote?
No.
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 No, but it's great for supporting material because it has a great clipper. But no, I wouldn't actually, I think of it as a filing cabinet. So I could probably find anything in here. In fact, one thing that was in here that I did see the other day, and I thought, no, I'd walk away because you'll only get teary, was when Maya was first diagnosed with arthritis. He was our boy, our lovely boy. All his medications went in here, and my observations. Oh, Pete, you'd be so proud of me. I was doing obs every 3 hours. He was on some, what was that drug? Was it tramadol?
Yeah.
He was walking into walls. So we ended up taking him off it. But I was doing obs every couple of hours like he's walking into the wall.
BK says hi.
Hello, BK. And it's still in there. You know, there was no point deleting it. It's like a point in time, and I look back. Don't look at it that often, but when I do, you know, wry smile. Me wandering around with a thermometer. Anyone less like a nurse. Right, Patricia dropped Evernote and moved to Simple Note. Oh, Simple Note's great. Simple Note, although it's fairly basic in terms of its text and not audio and all the rest of it, that's totally cross-platform. I did use it. We used it for the show at one point, didn't we? For a couple of shows. What I did with it in the end was I cleaned it up completely. There is not one single note in it. Not one. But it's set up on every one of my devices. And if I have a need, you know, out with a client and I'm using their machine and I'm like, I don't want to log into anything else, I'll just log into Simple Note and put it in there. It's a very, very good app. But that is the new and shiny Evernote. New and shiny. We like new and shiny, don't we, Mike? Although in this circumstance, it's still only going to be accessed to me for old content. But there you go. Evernote, the new Evernote, which will be on your desktop sometime soon. Simple Note's not gone. No, Simple Note's still there, isn't it? There's an app as well. There you go. There's Simple Note. As I said, not a single note, but it's ready for use. So it's great. It's a great app. You saw how fast it loaded. You can have tags in it. You can it's pretty much like Evernote, isn't it? You want to put a note in, new note, and now I've got a new note. And I can tag it with whatever I want it tagged with. So open up the tagging and put the tagging on if you want it. Oh, yes. So I leave it there completely naked and contentless just in case I need it. But no, that's still going. It's still going. And it's completely cross-platform. It doesn't matter if you've got a Google Chromebook. It works. Which, when you think about the others, like, oh, well, Evernote kind of works, but does it have this feature? Well, maybe not. You know, Simple Note is just as it says, simple. Across the board, you've got complete equality across the board, no matter what you are using it for. Right, where did my Prezzo go? Right, there we go. Right, we're going to look at Affinity Designer and creating artwork. Now, as you know, we are taking on a bit of a big project. It seemed like a good idea at the time. You know, you're on holiday, feet up. Oh, that's a great idea. And then before you know it, you think, oh, I'm going to have to make some real stuff here. So what we've done in the past, creating artwork's pretty easy. Remember the bus? We did the bus a couple of weeks back. It's doing it right from the beginning that's difficult. So from artboard, symbols, assets, palettes, get it right the first time and you'll save yourself a ton of time and grief later. That's what we're going to be looking at. And I'm going to start with the artwork that we are going to need for project number 13. So it doesn't really matter, to be honest, what you are creating. You would be advised to start off in the best way. You thinking of opening up, are we? Affinity! And there we go. Right. I've already got some stuff in here. Your mileage may vary, but I will show it as if I haven't. So some of the things that we're going to need for Project 13 are going to be A4 sized. Some are going to need to fit slides. Now, it could be that you don't have any templates to start with, but templates are a great place to start if you have them. And I have shown creating templates before. Maybe Mike can find out what episode that was. But if you have a template like these, so that's my YouTube poster set. If I wanted to create a poster for a YouTube video, that is where I would actually start. In fact, I can show you one that I did. In fact, we'll actually create it based on that. Now, the bit that you see where it says YouTube poster set, that's there just so when I go up to File New, there, and I choose Template, I get a lovely thumbnail. It's a dirty hack. One of my favourites. And I do believe Kim was impressed with that one. But all I've actually done with it to get the nice thumbnail is to shove an artboard on top of all the other artboards and put some stuff on it. So the first thing I do is to actually delete all of that, and then I am up and running. Now, I'm assuming with this session that you have not done that, and you do not have a template that's all sat there ready for you to go. But that's what we're aiming for, something like that. And if you want to see something like that that's in progress, I do believe I had to work on that. Oh, there you go. Reveal of the poster. Only done this bit so far, but I will be doing a session mastering blend modes in Affinity Photo by request at some point in the next few weeks. So I was playing around and that was what I decided on. Not much to see in terms of how it was actually done, just showing you that that is part of the template. So I said file new, went in there, boom, done, there it is. And then what I would do with that is then do the other sizes. So this one is for my blog. Oh, Jonathan was here because it's got a really weird ratio, hasn't it? It's something like 179.3 to 4. It's ridiculous. But that one is 795 pixels by 500. This is the square one, which would be something like an Instagram thing. And this one looks really weird because there's this bit hanging off the bottom. This one gives me, because it's for YouTube. And at the end, I do a wrap up. And at the end, there's the poster and it kind of reflects and it comes from there. But
Was
yes.
it the Create Blank MacBites poster template?
What is?
You asked me to find something.
Yes, that sounds about right, Mark.
Right.
I had no idea what you're talking about there. Yeah, so that's an exclusive reveal for you. Coming soon. Coming soon. Right, dirty hack. This is one of the many reasons I love Elaine. Thank you, Patricia. Oh, yes, I do love my dirty hacks. So that's basically what I can throw together in 2 minutes flat because I've already gone through the process that I'm going to show you right now, which is I came in here and I had an idea for what the poster could look like. And what that was, it didn't have any text, it didn't have the sidebar, it didn't have that. What I was doing was looking at a presentation that I delivered 6 years ago. And I saw that image and I thought that's perfect. It was about blend modes. I thought that's perfect for the poster I need to create, which was on my to-do list, my ever-expanding to-do list, which is overflowing. As you saw on my iPad, things had 23 items that are overdue, but I'm getting to them one at a time. So what I did with that was, once I'd seen that image, I thought, whoa, I can go and do that right now. And I knew I could do it because I exported that image, which is this background bit here, and I threw it into a template. So what was helping me get this job done in about a minute was the fact that I'd already created a template. I already had the presentation. I just thought I liked that image, so I took it out. I brought it into here, into the template. I then needed to tone it down a bit because to get any text on the top of that and have it legible, I needed to tone it down. So I did that by putting some white over the top of it. But I knew I had all of my assets, which meant I could have a play around with, you know, which one looks better. Does it look better in the red, which is my default? But this is Affinity Photo. So I actually have an Affinity Photo sidebar, which was that one, which was the right colours for Affinity Photo. So because previous me, historical me, had taken the time to create all of these assets, future me was able to throw together a poster in 2 minutes. Whereas if I had to start from scratch with all of that and go and find that file, I'd probably find it was made in Sketch and that was the end of that. So previous me thought lovingly about future me and started putting together the assets that I knew I would need in the future. So that was put on there. I put a shadow on it to lift it up, and then I put the text on it. And that was it. Poster was done. So that poster is the standard size. At that point, I can create it on YouTube and I can export that. Obviously, what I would actually now do, now I've agreed, yes, that's it, I'm happy with that, I'd go and make the other versions. The point I'm making by showing you this is, it turned into, it only needed 4 things. and it took less than 2 minutes. But it wouldn't have done if I was starting completely from scratch. So let's get rid of that and see what you would have to do if you were starting from scratch. Now, the stuff that we're going to need is, we're definitely going to need an A4 cover. So if I go to File and New, I wouldn't particularly have a template for that. But in the presets, I'd need to make a decision about what size I want it and if I want it print ready or not. So I've got my own presets, which I haven't created any. I don't bother with the presets because mine are templates and they've got content in. Kim says, your 2 minutes is my half hour. You'll get faster. You'll get faster. But I do have presets for print, and I have press ready, and I have photos. So these are going to give me sizes and qualities and settings to use as a starting point. And that's great because it does give you, you know, as long as you come in here and like, that's the one I need. Right, I may decide to print this out. So I might decide that press ready is a jolly good idea. And I want it A4. So there's my A4. But it's still a good idea to go through what's down on the right hand side. And this, of course, is the thing that could take you time, which is why you would bother to create a template. Because a preset can only include settings. A template can include content. So you could have half of that set up. If you always use the red bit and you always had a particular look and feel to it, you could set that up. Whereas with a preset, all you're doing is saying, yeah, the background bit, I want it this size. I want this DPI. I want this colour space. But there's no content. But even that would be a start for you to create your own preset. Because at the moment, I've got to go through this now and make sure that everything matches what I want it to do, and that's going to take more time. So my 2 minute thing, I'll do that now because I know I can do it in 2 minutes. I can do it in 2 minutes flat because there's a template, there's assets, there's styles, there's saved colours, everything's there. The whole toolkit is there for me. But what we're looking at now is, what if you didn't have any of that? Then this is what you would need to do. So it's got the page width, it's got the height, it's got the DPI. It's going to be measured in millimetres, which is fine. If you wanted it the other way, you can flip it with that, but I do want it vertical. You determine whether you create an artboard or not. Now, I am going to put this on an artboard. I don't see much reason not to use artboards. Artboards are what would enable you to have multiple items in a single file. And as you've seen with mine, I've got multiple posters and each one has its own artboard. Artboards are fabulous when it comes to export, and our next live session is going to be, not the after hours one, the live one that's usually a Thursday night, is going to be mastering the export persona, because there's a lot to it. But being able to use the export persona effectively starts with having artboards in your document. So I would put an artboard in. Then you need to determine your colour space. So at the moment it's CMYK, and that's pretty much because it's press ready. It's going to expect CMYK. This can all be changed later if you need it to be, so you could actually just leave it alone. I know that our printer uses coated Fogra, don't they? Wasn't it 39?
39 it was.
Fogra 39. Margins, if it is actually for print, then a margin of 1 inch and more at the bottom all the way around is probably about right. But I know I would probably want less of a margin than that. So I would probably put 10 in there. And we've done this a million times. I'm going to want 15 at the bottom. But if the rest is 10, put the chain on. Which, why are you not doing that? There we go. And then take the chain off for the one that needs to be different, like that. I'll leave the bleed on, which is the area around it. It doesn't matter that I'm going to want a web version of this that the bleed's irrelevant on. It doesn't matter whether that's there or not. But it's easier to have it there at the beginning, should I want to print this, than try fiddling and putting it on later when I've decided I do. So click create. And at that point, I've got my artboard, my A4 artboard. Now, I'm more than likely, with what I'm doing with this, going to want 2 of these for the front and the back. So I held down the Option key and I've dragged a second one next to it, and now I'm holding the Shift key down and using the arrow keys to move that way. Why are you not moving in units of 10? That's ridiculous. Fair enough. Be weird on me then. There we go. Right. In fact, that's moving up. There we go. That's better. Right. So I've got my 2 artboards. That gives you in your layers panel 2 distinct areas to start working with. It also means, so if we call this one front cover, and we call this one a back cover, when we go into the export persona, you can see those areas are already defined for export. Without them being defined, you get this background. And that's one export. So just to show you what that's actually giving you, if I put a grey box on there and a different coloured box on there, and we look at that export, there we go. What this background one will give you is everything in one graphic, which you hardly ever need, which is why it's turned off by default. But you do have your front cover isolated from your back cover, which means when it comes to the actual configuration of the export, they don't have to be the same. They can be if you want, but they don't actually have to be the same. So at the very beginning of starting your Affinity artwork, think about the artboard you're going to need. Now, I may well need another artboard, even if what I'm creating is digital. If I have a front cover and a back cover, what would be missing? And what would be missing is the spine. So let's say we went for 32. Now that, if we look at it, it's added a rectangle, but it's not on an artboard. So that's just free floating somewhere. Now, if that's happened to you and you're like, I put the artboards in at the beginning, but now I've got this bit and it's not on an artboard, go back to the artboard tool on the left with the bit selected that needs an artboard of its own. And then in the artboard settings, which are across here, so all of this area is where your custom settings change depending on which tool you have selected down here. So it's going to be different. It's context sensitive based on the tool you have selected. But in this case, that was not good, was it? That wasn't what I wanted to do. That was what I wanted to do. In this case, what I need to do with it is up here, change it from document, which would put an artboard around everything, and choose selection, and then insert artboard. And retrospectively, that will then add that to an artboard. So prove the point, it is actually there. That's selected the artboard. If I select the rectangle that we had, there's the artboard behind it. So it's put the artboard there. And I would then change the name of that to spine. And now I can start designing. In fact, it would probably make more sense from a design perspective to put the spine in the middle. Or would it? Where should the front cover be and the back cover be and everything else to make that work? And you can sort that out in here. You wouldn't want the spine to the right of the front cover. It should be to the right of the back cover. Or should it be to the left of the back cover? Very much depends, doesn't it? Depends on how you're actually going to design this. But if I move this out of the way and I move the spine between the two, that would actually work. Now I could put these, bump them up to each other completely, in case I want to do a wraparound design. And the spine would be to the left of the front cover and it would be to the right of the back cover. So that's a good way to think about it. Now, this gives you a lot of benefits. A lot. So first of all, I'm going to change these colours. I can't go for pink. I just can't. No, there we go. But I do need them to be something that you can actually see, like that. In fact, I'll probably take it because I'm not showing the bleed at the moment. I'm going to worry about the bleed later. But what I'm doing this for is to show you the different areas that you've got. So obviously, Orange is the front, blue is the back, and yellow is the spine. You might think, oh, no, I'd have them separate. It would make much more sense if they were separate. Separate in terms of the view that you've got on here. It might, and you might want to focus on the front cover, the back cover, or just the spine. But I would still leave them as close as that. Because if you want to create a wraparound design, they need to be that close. If you want to focus on just the back cover, turn the other bits off and just focus that way. The huge benefit this will give you is, at the moment, you have 3 artboards, front, spine and back. You could create another artboard to have the whole thing exported, but if you want to do some kind of mock-up down the line, you've also got the option up here to export just the background as well. And now, because they're touching each other, they're really close to each other, that background export now starts to make sense. You could actually call that, full mock-up. Put a tick in the box, make sure what your settings, a PNG at 1, change the name of that to full mock-up, that's awesome, export, and at that point you have, or you will have, exported the entire front cover without having to fiddle around. So I'll put this on the desktop. I didn't think I had anything on the desktop, looks like I do have things on the desktop. That's naughty, isn't it? I usually don't. Right, let's get this lot out of the way and concentrate on this one. Come on, back you come. There we go. So if I open that up, there's our entire mock-up of the front, spine and back cover. All without doing anything extra, just because of the way you arrange the artboards. So as I said with the title of this piece, it's setting it up right from the beginning. So we've got our 3 artboards. We have got content on it. We've set up the exports we want, or the ones we want so far. I've got the squares on for colour, but obviously that's by the by, totally irrelevant. It would be for you to put your content on it in terms of what you actually wanted to see. But what else could you do at this point that would save future you cursing previous you? So you've got your artboard sorted. Now what I've already done is I've already got assets. So assets are the next thing to think about. Now, they're my personal branding assets, but I also have MacBites assets. And this saves me fiddling around. Future me loves past me at this point. This is a starting point. Your assets are your starting point. So when I make a poster, there's my poster number. That's how it starts. So I would then place that where I want to place it. I would double click in it and double click again, which gets me inside here. Jonathan's not here. Shall we do it? Shall we do the 134 thing?
Why not?
Naughty me. And what I would do if I was putting that up there, I'm working in a group and I'm working from a starting point. So here's my MacBites show number, and MacBites. The reason it's not wrapped around in a text box of its own is that I then can change that. So I left align them, right align them, center align them, whatever I want to do with it. Which is not going to be easy at the minute, is it? Because half of it's hidden under here. There we go. There it is. So I might want to right align that if I want it in that top corner. Now, it's a starting point. It's not the end. It's a starting point. So if I drag this on, you start again. There's no connection between the two. You would have to start again. That's time consuming, isn't it? What can we do about that? In fact, at the moment, I'm just going to save this. When you've not saved it, book cover. That's when it would crash. Right, let me show you something that I've created where it gets the job done much faster than this. But assets are useful. Don't, with what I'm about to show you, think that assets are, they're half-baked. They're not. If I just wanted to bring on the MacBites waves and bring that to the front, wrong board, there we go, front cover, come on, up you go, in there, and scale that as required. It's a great starting point, it is. But for certain things, let's have a look. Deborah wants a centralised asset library. That'd be good. That'd be good. Sketch does that. They've added so many new features to Affinity Designer since they released it that I am actually quite excited for Affinity Designer 2, because they must have something big planned. Because what they've added is enough to warrant an upgrade to version 2. So things like that may well come in version 2. Don't forget you can export, import and jiggle around with them though. You even tried working out where they are to duplicate, but no joy. Oh, I can help you there. That's not an issue. I'm actually going to show you that. Hold that thought. But at this point, what I wanted to show you was this business of, creating that bit, but then on the back, I want that, and I do want it to say 134. This is what happens when I make a new MacBites After Hours poster. So I go into my templates, and I go into MacBites, and I have the MacBites show art, and I have the MacBites After Hours posters. So I double click it, and I get my file. Obviously, that bit there needs to have the show number, and it needs to match that and match that. And this is the date, and that needs to match this, and that needs to match that. So every time you're doing a poster, you're like, oh, not again. It's far too easy to make a mistake as you're changing things. So you'll notice that these, if I were to double click, I'm not selecting anything. Hear it double clicking? Double clicking, and I'm not selecting a thing because that and that are locked. I don't actually need to edit any of these because I have this one, which is a separate artboard entirely. This top one here, date and show number. Okay, so let's say we're going for, are we going on the 30th of October? I think the 30th of October is a show. So if I put in 30 October, look what's happening on the other three. I update in one place, it updates in all of them. Plus the fact, show number. What's the show number for the 30th of October, Mike?
I'm having a look.
No, that's my date, and that's my show number.
100.
Show 100. Oh, it's party time as well. There we go. And there's show 100. That now is that poster done. The last thing I need to do is when I export these, I want them exported and I want everything all organised for me, just everything. Right, so if in here I put in the number, I would copy, double click, paste. Don't know why that's doing that. My copy and paste is not copying and pasting, would you believe? I would actually, it's been one of those days. Right, I would copy and paste and then they've all got the right name. Now you usually have a problem if you come to export these because they've all got the same name and it will complain. But in the export settings, we have export magic going on here. Nothing's complaining about anything. And I'm going to export it to all the sizes and all the colours that I need in one go. So I'm going to go to desktop. I'm not going to put anything on there. No, don't keep jumping around. Just go there, will you? And export it. Right, they're being exported to the desktop. And when it's finished, there's lots of chat going on. Going to give me the skinny. Right, you'll see that although I exported them all to the desktop, they've gone into one folder. And I didn't tell it which folder to put it in. It just knew by magic. And then when I open that, there's another folder in it that's got a full name, including the number. And then inside that, I've got all of the posters. How fast that to do all that artwork. Now, I'll show you how all of that works in the export persona show. But just showing you that there is a way to make it that you change things in one place, changes them in multiple ways. And when you hook that up with the export persona, magic happens. You've got all of this. And that looks like that. There they all are. Different sizes, different shapes, whole thing. Right, what's the skinny in the chat?
It's all about working between designer, photo, designer, publisher. Workflows by the look of it.
Sounds fab.
Kieran Deborah.
Right, I will. That's not got a name at the moment, but it will have. So let's save that as 100 and stick it in there and close it. Right, so that was to show you how much the export persona can help you, and the fact that these are great. Assets are great as a starting point, but that's not as far as you can take it. So what I would actually do in this circumstance is lose this second one and work on this first one that now has the correct number in it. And instead of using an asset, which is a starting point, I would use a symbol for that. Renee is quite right. That's exactly what I would do. So what I can do in here with it selected is just say create a symbol, and it takes it across. That is now an instance of the symbol in here, and then I can just bring that in wherever I need it. And the beauty of that is any one of the instances, I can say, well, yeah, we've done 4, we're going to 5, and it updates across all of them. And if you do want, you know, say you want the one at the back to be 136, obviously your problem then is it's going to change these ones. But what you can do is you can either detach this one from the others, or you can turn the sync off for a second while you make a custom change to it, like that, and then turn the sync back on. So symbols are fabulous. Symbols automatically update. So when you're thinking about what you can create at the beginning of a project, and I know what you're thinking, that's going to be far easier at the end. Totally agree. You know, obviously that MacBites poster thing developed over time. But looking back, you know, as I start a project now, it's like, okay, where are we going with this? What exports are we going to need? What assets are we going to need? What assets are going to be repeated so they can be turned into symbols and things like that. Now, as I saw in the chat, part of this, assets across the 3 apps are separate and you want a centralized asset library. Right, I haven't got time to read the rest of the chat, but something was suggested. Was there something that's suggested? Is it this last one by Deborah? I edit in Designer?
Yeah, I think so.
Edit in Designer, edit in Photo, and then go back and edit in Designer. Just tested it, and that's what I would do. What I did in Photo goes back into Designer. Yes, it does. If you actually have Publisher, even if you have no desire to make a publisher type of document, the file formats across all 3 applications are identical. So, if you opened up Publisher, Publisher has Studio Link. And from Publisher, you can send that file in real time. You don't even have to switch it like you would do it here. Let's take this as an example. Did I save this? I did, didn't I, as book cover? You can go from here and edit it in Photo. And if you do that, this happens. It's beach balling, it has a think about it. It takes this file, it goes away and finds Photo, and then it opens up Photo, and then you can do some work in it eventually when we get there. Because it's actually running Photo. It's closing down the file in Designer and it's opening up the same file in Photo. And you can then edit away. It's exactly the same. You've got your artboards over here. Everything's the same. But to get back to Designer, you then be up here and edit in Designer. And then it needs to close the file down and then it goes back to Designer. So it's not too bad once they're both open, right? But the best way is actually to take the file and open it in Publisher. Because Publisher has Studio Link, and Studio Link enables you to just switch to the tools of the app and then switch back again. The question's being asked, why is Studio Link not in Affinity Designer and Affinity Photo? And the answer came back, because it's not relevant. It's not... People would do that job less. In their mind, Publisher is where it's at, and Publisher needs supporting applications. But I would be inclined to work in Publisher and work that way. You can open up Publisher and spend 90% of your time in Designer or 90% of your time in Photo, but if you then need to flick back and just add another page, you're already in Publisher. So Debbie says I need to spend more time looking through the manuals. It's just, I would love it if it was just that kind of way of working. In fact, it would make great sense to me if they brought out a framework and then you bought the components that you wanted. So instead of calling this thing Publisher, just call it Affinity Studio and activate the bits that you want. So if you don't want photo, but you do want designer, then you buy designer, but you've got this framework and it just enables the designer bits, but the photo bits aren't there. And if you've got all three, then all three bits are available in this single framework. The nearest you can get to that is to work in Affinity Publisher and switch to designer and photo as and when you need. That is a very good workflow. But let's get back to these assets and symbols. So the assets themselves are independent of the file, and that's important to think about. I put an instance in here originally. Let's get the MacBites logo and put that in. I've put an instance in, and the instance lives in this file, but there's no connection between this and the asset. It's just an instance of it in this file. Now, if you want to use these assets on another machine, what I have seen people do is drag them all into here and then drag them all out again at the other end. Don't do that. What you can do in here is export them. You have an import and you have an export for assets. So what I would do anytime I make any changes is export the assets. And to give you the full proper way that I would do it, I would go to Dropbox. I would go, no, this is default folder playing with my mind. Right, I would go into here, which is my application support folder. I'm hoping I'm in the right drive. Dropbox, application support. And I would create a folder for the application. So in this case, it's Affinity Designer. And then I would go into it, which I think it's done. There we go, Affinity Designer. And I would then name the assets. So these are the MacBites assets. That is now backed up. And I can access it from any computer anywhere because I put it in Dropbox. So that's backing it up. What I could then do in here, which would be a very good way of demonstrating it, wouldn't it, would be to delete the category. Delete the whole lot. Do you want to delete MacBites? Yes. And it's gone, and all my MacBites assets have gone. But I can then go back and import the assets, point to my Dropbox folder, there they are, and open them, and back they come. And everything is there. I've got some weirdness going on there, but everything is there. It has the correct name. It even has the groups. So I have after hours stuff and I have just global assets. So that could be on somebody else's machine. You could have that on a client's machine. So it is worth the while to create the assets. What I would say is if you have created assets and they are on your main hard drive and you have no backup of them elsewhere, to extricate those from a drive level backup would be a nightmare. So do export them at least every time you change them. Do a global export at the beginning and then every time you change them. Now, the difference between the assets and the symbols is that the symbols live in the file. So if I go and I create a new file, let's have a show art one. Why not? Because we can. You can see there are no symbols in here. But if I go to the assets, all of the assets are available. So just remember the difference. The assets are a starting point. The symbols automatically update. The assets live in the framework of the application, but the symbols live in the file. Once you've got that straight, you're good to go. Just then make sure you make a backup. Oh,
as Deborah
no,
says.
Deborah, no, you didn't. If that does happen, your best bet, presupposing, you've got no backups to go back and get them from. If you do have files that you've used those assets in, that's probably going to be your best way to get them back. As I say, I do know people who've dragged all the assets out and put them in a file. But I mean, it's a terribly long-winded way of doing it. but it did work. At least it worked. But yeah, it's very easy to forget stuff like this. One thing I keep meaning to try, and it's one of those things that's in your to-do list and you get round to it in like 2028, is what if I symlinked where these lived to a shared folder? Would that mean that they're automatically backed up and I don't have to play around with them? It does seem a little bit odd in this day and age that they live local and you're responsible for backing them up somewhere else. Presuppose nothing. Did the file open drag thing? It was awful. Yeah, the more you have, the worse it is. I mean, I've got a handful there, but if you look at some of these for like iOS 12, just look at how many groups there are and then look within them how many there are. You don't want to be recreating this. Back them up to somewhere that's predictable. I mean, I can show you my Dropbox thing here. Let's just get that on the right screen, Dropbox. Over here, you toddle. That's it. My Dropbox looks the same as everything else, apart from the things I can't change. So I always have an inbox at the top. I always have my para. My application support is one of the exceptions that lives outside the para system. Apps is a folder that's a reserved folder by Dropbox. I can't move it. If I do, everything will break. That is shared with me. I wouldn't be narcissistic enough to call my folder after myself. But if you look carefully at that, you can see it's got 3 little people on it. That's actually shared with me by my dentist. They are the before and after photos of my teeth, which I will spare you. But because it's shared, I can't move it. So it has to live in the root. The file requests I've got living in the root, so they're in there. And Notability, no matter how many times I tell it to not put stuff in the root, it puts it in the root. But the application support folder is created by me. And in there, that's where I'm going to find settings for all of the apps, and they go back years. They go back to stuff I haven't used in years, like Little Snapper. Where's that Spiral thing? Spiral Bound Pro. Oh, that was a fabulous app. And the data for it is still in there. But the app's long gone. I've been doing that for years. So now I've got an Affinity Designer one. I would export everything to in there. You could have it like Affinity at the top level and then sub ones underneath. You could create subfolders for assets, but it's pretty self-evident because they've got a file extension of their own. But it doesn't matter whether it's Dropbox, pCloud, Box, it doesn't matter. But get it off your hard drive. Have it automatically backing up. 2 places are better than 1, obviously. But it's so worth doing. It really is worth doing. Right, so we've looked at the assets. We've looked at that. Other things to think about are where you're going to put your colours. Now, for this project, we're going to have a style guide, but it doesn't exist at the moment. I did a whole session on colour. I could talk for hours about colour. It's unbelievable, the level of detail you can get involved in when it comes to colours. If you're a Windows user, you've got one less option. That's just a limitation of Windows. But think about palettes. So I have demonstrated this. I'm not going to go into any great detail with it. But, when I'm working on my Blue Yeti course, these are the colours I'm working with. And there is a panel for that is in there. And I can manage all of these at system level, import, export, and all of the other things as well, which I'm sure we've demonstrated. Export palette. So once you've created it, this is also something else that you can export. It's gone to the Affinity Designer one, that'll do. And now that's backed up as well. So thinking through what colours you're going to need. Now, like I've said, that's just touching on what you can do in Affinity Designer, but actually we're going to be creating a complete style guide. So I'm going to leave that for when we come onto the style guide. It'll just be easier doing it that way. Right. Basically, at this point, ask yourself how far you can take it. How far you can take it. I also wanted to point out in terms of these assets, so we've got the MacBites ones and we've exported them. If we forget that and we look at photo, let's get rid of photo and go into Publisher. We should be able to import those from memory. I'm thinking about that. I'm sure I did that. But it doesn't really make sense, does it? It's actually easier not to. But you do have assets. There are the assets. So again, these are the only assets I've got in Affinity Publisher. But if I go in and I totally nuke them, so delete category, yes, I'm sure, then this is what Affinity Publisher usually looks like. Nothing there. But I can go and import them, and I am going to have to go and find them because it's going to the Affinity Publisher folder, whereas you and I know that I put them in Dropbox in my application support, and they actually came from Designer. But the AF assets format can be imported into Publisher, and you can get going from there. Okay? So we're at the stage that we're at the very beginning, but there's all, as I hope you've seen from that, there's a lot of things that you can get right at the beginning, which future you will thank you for. So we've got going with it. What I'm going to do after Mike has finished is get into actually what we're doing with this project, and at some future point, I'm not sure which week, we'll come back and we'll actually start creating the assets that we need and exporting them and putting them in the right place. That's just getting it right from the beginning. Okay, I have Freebies. This came in today and it was actually really amazing. It's Friday Freebies. They're there for a week. You need a free account. Once you've got your free account, they're totally free. And some of the things that I thought were fantastic were the iDevice 11 Pro mock-up kit. It's got so many assets in it, images in it that you can work with, and it's totally free. The other one that was stunning was this one up here, which was the PowerPoint deck. Again, so many slides in it, and the whole thing was animated. And at the moment, totally free. Music's also a really good one. I say this every time we've got one. But when you have access to anything music-y, they are so expensive. They're often way more expensive than all of the images. So get them while they're free is the best advice. Now, Mike's going to answer all of the questions that you probably never had about MacBites. On you, Mike.
I'll try.
Right. Are you ready to rock and roll?
Yes.
Awesome. I've got all kinds of weirdness happening here. Look at this. All these panels that have opened up on different screens.
Oh.
But never mind. I will get over to you. Look at that desktop. Just look
Yes,
at
it's
it.
just as messy as last week.
It is.
Actually, it's more messy because there's more files.
If it makes you happy. Where you go.
Okay.
Have you pressed record?
I've pressed record.
Everyone keeps asking me, so I just thought I'd ask you.
And what happened when I asked you last week?
I went mad.
Yeah.
I said, you think I'm an idiot? Which clearly you did from the week before. Anyway, if everything's fine, do get along with it.
Thank you. Okay. Yes. What I've done is I built a dashboard.
Should I take this personally from Neil? Yay, Mike! Bromance.
I didn't see that. Oh, thanks, Neil. Right. Yeah, I built a dashboard, which I will show you in a second, which summarises things about MacBites. But not just the MacBites podcast, After Hours, Marooned, and various other things. And it's basically things like how many shows we've done, how many minutes we've done, etc., etc. Now, I think I've shown this before a long, long time ago, but I've basically recreated it and improved it during this last week. One of the reasons is so that we can say how many hours of MacBites have we done, and how many MacBite shows were released this year, and what percentage of all our content has been done since lockdown, etc., etc. Now, I'm sure I've talked about dashboards before, and the thing about dashboards is they're very personal to you, and they're very personal to... A dashboard's going to be full of charts, but this one isn't. It's full of figures. It could be full of charts, but ultimately what we're trying to get from this dashboard is figures. So it's horses for courses, as we say in the UK. We may say horses for courses in other countries. I don't know. Who knows? Yeah. But let me open this dashboard up, if I can find the folder. There we go. There we go. MacBites shows, it's called. And then I'm going to start from scratch and show you how I put it together. So there is the data. Now that data came from a table in Notion. We've got a table in Notion that holds information about the shows. So it's got things like the show name, the release date, the duration, but there's lots more. There's loads more columns. So what I've done is I've exported that data from Notion to a CSV file, and then I've used Power Query to tidy it up. We've done Power Query to death over recent months, so I'm not going to go into the query itself, but I've also added an extra column. That column is basically saying if the release date was after the 16th of March 2020, then lockdown should say after lockdown, otherwise it should say before lockdown. And as I was putting the formula in, I was actually thinking of having multiple lockdown columns. Because we've got lockdown 1, we might have lockdown 2.
Oh yeah, it's like the Star Wars franchise, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're in 4 different lockdowns at the moment.
Now, but I'm just sticking to the first and original, the one and only lockdown, starting on the 16th of March. Because I haven't got direct access to the database, the Notion database, I can't hook into it. So I've got to download it every week or every day, however often I choose to do it. Go into Notion, go to the table, export to a CSV. I then need to copy that CSV to my Windows desktop and refresh the query, because Power Query only exists in Excel for Windows. So that's the raw data, and this, I believe, goes up to and including yesterday, because I did an export this afternoon. So there is the first set of pivot tables. So the first one is broken down by year, and it shows you how many shows we did for each year and what percentage that is of the total. You can see that in 2020 alone, 2020 accounts for just over 50% of all our shows. Then I've done a similar thing for duration. Then I've broken it down not by year, but I've broken it down by show. So we've got After Hours, we've got MacBites, we've got MacBites Live, which is where we cover the keynotes, MacBites FM, which is 2 shows that didn't fit into any of the other categories. Can you remember which shows they would be?
One was a launch show, and one was a news show that week.
Yeah. Well, no, the launch show isn't listed.
Isn't it?
No.
Oh.
No.
Oh, there was a launch show. It was fabulous.
No, the other one was 'Twas the Night Before the Keynote.
Oh, it was. You're right.
Yes.
We did another live. I remember.
Yeah. So, yeah, what I could do is I could merge those with one of the other categories, or they could have a category of their own. But, you know, that is to be decided. And once we've finalised the categories, all I need to do is refresh the query, right-click refresh, and that will then update the pivot tables as well. So it's all flexible. I've also calculated the longest show, the shortest show, and the average duration of a show.
I know the shortest show.
The shortest show was 2 minutes 45 seconds, and
You weren't in it.
I wasn't in it.
It was 108A.
It was 108A.
I was in it, but only fleetingly.
And it was 2 iPhones talking to each other.
Nothing wrong with that. They did a great show.
They did.
They were complaining that we'd not done a show for a while.
They could do 134.
They could.
Yeah.
They could. You mustn't tease Jonathan.
No.
He's on a digital detox. Leave him be.
I've also set up a filter down the bottom. So I've set up that filter using the lockdown column. So the idea there is if you click after lockdown, then it filters all those pivot tables and only shows you the information from the 16th of March. If I click on before lockdown, then it shows me the information before the 16th of March, and I can clear that filter as well. On page 2, I created 2 other pivot tables, and what they've done is they've broken down even further into year and show. So one is showing how many we've done, and the other is showing the durations. Now, one thing that is a bit of a pain with Excel dashboards is the fact that these days there are so many different screen sizes. If you go back, and I was thinking about this the other day, I did an introduction to dashboards session quite a few years ago now, and I remember quoting a guy called Stephen Few, who is he's like the godfather of dashboards, not in Excel but just generally. He's come up with a lot of theoretical concepts, and one of the things he said was that a dashboard should ideally fit onto one screen. Now, I don't think that concept holds true anymore, because you've got so many different sizes of screens that you can't help scrolling, particularly up and down. You might want to try avoiding scrolling left and right too much, but certainly up and down. And with mobile devices, there's certainly going to be an element of scrolling. But what I've done is I've written a bit of VBA code, and what that VBA code does is it sets the zoom to be the width of the window. So if I actually manually do that, I'll select columns A to O and go to View, Zoom to Selection. It's actually set already to Zoom to Selection, and do the same thing on here. And what Zoom to Selection does is it basically says whatever cells you've got selected, fit them on the screen. So it will either zoom in, make the zoom a little bit smaller, or zoom out. And it's basically automating the manual zoom that you've got down at the bottom. If I was to change the resolution of my my screen, which I'm not going to do because it causes all kinds of technical problems, then if I close this file down and reopened it, then it would do another zoom. So it basically zooms to make sure that the content fits on the screen, and there's not too much white space, and you're not scrolling left and right either. And that macro, it's just a bit of VBA code, and it runs automatically when the file opens. And on page 3, I've got a little bit of a few formulas there, which are calculating how many shows we did pre-lockdown, how many shows we did post-lockdown, calculating those as the percentages. And as I said to Elaine earlier today, did you know that it took us from the 8th of October 2007 to the 15th of March 2020 to do 50%, near enough 50% of all our content? And it took us from the 16th of March to yesterday to do the other 50% of our content.
You see, all we needed was a worldwide pandemic.
Yeah. All we needed was a kick up the illuminated backside to get us going.
Exactly.
There we go. Okay, so let me show you a few little tips and tricks along the way, because it's a fairly straightforward dashboard. It's a fairly straightforward set of pivot tables, but there are a few little tips and tricks I can show you. Just having a quick look at any questions. I don't think there are any. Okay. Yeah, one thing is that I've put the lockdown date in A1. Not that we can actually change the lockdown date, because that, of course, was fixed in stone. But
when Boris finally got around to it.
yeah, but what I've done is I've put that in A1 and I've referenced that. You can see I've referenced that in the formulas. So it's counting the number of rows in the table called MacBites shows, which is my raw data table here. It's counting them where the release date is equal to or greater than what's in A1 or less than what's in A1, and then the percentages are calculating what's in B2 divided by the total number of shows. The number of minutes is very, very similar. So the first little trick I'll show you is, let's say I wanted to hide the contents of A1. The easiest thing to do, of course, would be to make the text the same colour as the background. But there are times when you can't do that. So a little trick is to go to that cell, go to the number section, click the drop down, go to more number formats, custom, and set a custom format of 3 semicolons. And what that does is it hides the cell contents. So if you didn't want to see that, then you can just hide the cell contents. You can see the cell contents up here in the formula bar, but you don't see them in the cell. Another little tip to show you is adding up times. Let's just set that to a normal time format. What that time format is showing you, it's obviously showing you hours, minutes, seconds. So it's a formula. It's a SUMIF function, which basically says add up the numbers in the column called duration from the table that's called MacBites shows. So this is the table called MacBites shows. There's the duration column. So add up all the numbers in that column, but only where the release date is before what's in A1, which is the 16th of March. So what it's done is it's added up all the durations in that column, but only where the release date is after the 16th of March. And the answer we get is 4 hours, 25 minutes, 58 seconds. Now, obviously that is wrong, because we know that we've done much more than that since the 16th of March. What it does, unless you format it in the way I'm going to show you, is it will take the total number of hours, divide that by 24 and show you the remainder. So let's say, for argument's sake, that the total number of hours that we've done since lockdown was 104. Well, no, that wouldn't be right, would it? Well, let's just say whatever. It's a multiple of 24, so the total is a multiple of 24, and that's the remainder. My mental arithmetic has gone out of the window. So if you want to format it to show you the actual total, then this is what you've got to do. You've got to go and apply more number formats, custom format, and use this format, which is the hours must go in square brackets. That's the key. So put the hours in square brackets, colon, minutes, colon, seconds. And there's your answer, 436 hours, 25 minutes, 58 seconds. But unless you use that format, what it does, as I say, is it takes the total and it divides it by 24 and it shows you the remainder. Okay, let's close this file down, and I have a copy of this file which has very little data in it apart from the raw data, and I think I left the formulas in there, and I just want to show you a few little tips and tricks with pivot tables. So I'm going to go over to the data sheet where the data is. I'm going to insert a pivot table. I'm going to use MacBites shows, which is that table, as the data source. and I'm going to stick the pivot table starting in A1 on page 1. I'm going to drag in the year. We haven't actually got the year, we've got the release date. So if I drag the release date and drop that into rows, that automatically groups by year. Whenever you drag a column into rows or columns, you drag a heading into rows or columns that contains a year, it automatically groups, contains a date, it automatically groups by year. Within the year, we've got the quarters. Within the quarters, we've got the months. But I don't want to drill down into quarters and months, so I'll drag quarters away and I'll drag the date away. So we're just left with the year. And then to get, let's say for this one, I want to do the number of shows that have been released. What I need to do is drag into the values section one of these column headings. And it has to be one where I know that we don't have any missing data. So I could drag the name in because I know we're always going to have a name. I could drag the status in because I know we're always going to have a status. I could drag the show type in because I know we're always going to have a show type. The release date, we know that. The duration, we should know that, but if I was to do this immediately the show had finished, I wouldn't necessarily know the duration. So if a show is just finished, we don't know the duration immediately until we press stop and check the recording. So I'm going to use the release date because I know that we've got a value in every cell for that. So I'll drag the release date, drop that into values, and because the release date is a date data, it's not numeric, it defaults to a count, and that's fine because that's what I want. So I'm going to change row labels to say year. I'm going to say change count of release date to number of shows, and just change the column width. And then I'm going to drag release date in again, but I want to change that to percentage. So right click, show values as % of grand total. And that calculates each one of these as a percentage of the grand total. And just make the heading a little bit friendlier. You'll notice that I've set my column widths to a certain size. I've done that because I'm going to have 3 or 4 pivot tables going across and I want to try and fill the entire screen. I know I've got that zoom macro, but it would be good to try and fill as much of the screen as possible. So very often you'll set your column widths to a certain size, and the problem is that when you refresh the pivot table, those column widths shrink back to their auto fit size. So to stop that happening, once you've got them set, go to Analyze, Options, and take the tick out of Auto Fit Column Widths on Update. And that way when you refresh the pivot table, the column widths will stay as they are. The next thing I will show you, because I'm not going to build too many pivot tables, is formatting the pivot table. Now, for something that I'm going to show you in a little while, I went into one of the pivot tables. I went into the pivot table options, and on the display tab, I took the tick out of display field captions and filter drop downs. Now if I just undo that, I've forgotten the reason I did it, but I wanted to hide some of the headings. And what I'd actually done is I wanted the heading row and the grand total row not to be this light blue, but I wanted it to be the MacBites orange. So what I did originally was I selected those cells and I went to apply a fill format. I actually used that orange, but that's on the recent colors. So before I'd applied that color, obviously it wasn't on the recent colors section. So what I did is I went to more colors, custom, and then I used the hex code for the MacBites orange, which I'll just copy across from my notes and click OK. And then I can do the same thing there, but this time it remembers the last color you used, so I can just select it. And what I found was when I went into the options and turned off the field captions and filter drop downs, it was actually losing the background color from that cell. So I came up with another way of doing it. I think I know what where the problem came. Let me just build another pivot table. Insert pivot table. Stick the pivot table here. And let's drag in the show type and the release date. I'll have them that way around. And let's just make it release date into values. Yeah, if I go back into the settings of the pivot table and I take the tick out of display field captions and filter drop downs, it was these things that I didn't want to be displayed. But if I go and apply the formatting, that actually looks okay. Yeah, that looks okay, but I did have a situation where it was losing the formatting. So what I will do is I will remove the formatting. Even though I'm choosing no fill, what it's doing is it is applying a fill, but the fill is the default background color, which it's pulling from a pivot table style. So when you click into a pivot table, you can go to design and you can choose one of these styles. Now, I didn't like any of these styles, so what I did is I built my own style using the MacBites orange. So I clicked on new pivot table style, gave the pivot table style a name, which I called MacBites, and I didn't apply a style to everything, but I applied a style to the header row. Interestingly, you can't change the font size. You can't change the font and the size, but you can apply bold. And for the fill color, I applied the MacBites orange. And I did exactly the same for the grand totals row. More colors. So by applying a style, it hasn't actually applied it, but the style now appears in this custom section. When you hover over it, you can see the name of the style. So if I click on that, it's now applied the style. And if I do the same thing with this pivot table, it applies the style. And it then means that if we decide in the future, you know what, we're not going to have orange as the MacBites color, I can go back and modify that style. So let's just go and change the color of the header row to green. Do you fancy MacBites green?
No.
No, me neither. Good job, it's just a demo. There we go. And it ripples through and updates all the pivot tables in this file. All right, the last thing I'm going to show you is something called the camera tool. Now, when I build dashboards, one of the things I tend to do is use text boxes. What I mean by that is, instead of putting something like total revenue and then changing that column width and doing a formula there to calculate the total revenue, what I tend to do is put text boxes in. Because by putting text boxes in, it means I can easily move them around, so I can easily rearrange the layout. I've got like a fluid layout. Just think, especially if you turn the grid lines off. So if I go to view and take the tick out of grid lines, it's just like a blank canvas. So it's more like a designer's tool than a spreadsheet. And then I can create another text box. And I can put a formula in that text box which will calculate the total revenue. So I tend to work with text boxes because you're not constrained by the column widths and the row heights. It just gives you more flexibility. And the problem with actually putting a pivot table directly into here is, again, you have to set the column widths, and then if you want to move things around, you've got to grab hold of the whole pivot table and rearrange it and drag and drop it, etc., etc. It's just less flexible. So the camera tool, I don't know if any of you have used the camera tool, but the camera tool's been around in Excel for ages. By default, it's not on the ribbon. It used to be, back in the old days, pre-ribbon, it used to be on the toolbar, but now it's not on the ribbon. So the only way you can have it available is to add it to the quick access toolbar, which is this little sort of mini toolbar at the top. So you click the drop down arrow on the right hand side of that quick access toolbar. You go to more commands, choose commands from to all commands, and then go and find the camera. They're in alphabetical order, which helps. And then you just add it. You can see I've already added it. So what you would do is you would select the pivot table, and it doesn't even have to be a pivot table. It can be anything. It could be a chart. It could be a block of data. So in this case, select the pivot table, click on the camera icon. I'm going to go to page 2. My mouse pointer's a little cross, and I just click. And what that does is it takes what looks like a screenshot, but it's a live screenshot. So because it's basically, it looks like an image, it means you've got the flexibility to drag and drop it where you want to. But any changes to the original, whether it be in the content or the formatting, so let's change those to bold and red, will automatically update those. You can resize it easily. You can move it around easily. And if I decided, you know what, I don't want to see the grand totals, or I don't want to see the headings, I can go and edit this formula. So instead of it being A1 to C16, I'm going to make it A2 to C16. And that way it doesn't show the headings. And actually, let's make it A15 as well. There we go. And when it comes to next year, if we've got 2021's data in the raw data and we update the pivot table and we get an extra row showing 2021, that will update as well. So the camera tool is actually very useful, not just in dashboards, but you can use it in a lot of things in Excel. It's basically a dynamic screenshot. All right, so hopefully that has been useful, giving you some background information into how I've put the MacBites dashboard together. So, I will
Awesome.
hand back to you.
Oh, you're going to like this. Right, I'm going to share my screen with you, and this is what I've been doing while Mike's been doing other things. They've finally told me there's an update. It's good of them, isn't it? So I got a little tiny message at the top that came around the backlinks. When I clicked on that, I get page 2 of it, and it gives me a lot of information. When you click on the Learn More in the Help Centre thing, it takes you to here. And now there's some information about it. So, day late and $1 short, but it's finally there. They've admitted that the feature's there, which is fantastic. Right, let's get this out of the way. We don't need that, do we? We are going into there, but not just at the moment. So, let's head off back into there. Yes, project number 13, week 1 proper. So, project number 13, if you were not with us last week, is we had this iBook that we built. I think it took me 8-10 days when iBooks Author first came out, and it was released in 2012. And it's not really been updated, so project number 13 is updating the thing. Obviously, it's going to have to be done very differently, because iBooks Author is no longer supported as iBooks Author. The creation of iBooks is supported, but you would be best advised to go through Pages right now. We can't just take what we've got and use it as a basis and add to it, because there's so many features of iBooks Author that, 9 years ago were fabulous that still are not available in Pages. So we haven't made a decision about the final output of it. We're at the stage of needing to corral together all of the assets and bring some structure to a project at the beginning of the project. We know where we're heading with the project towards the very end, which is pretty much where every project is, isn't it? So let's go and do it. All right, let's come out of there. So my first thought was DEVONthink. And this is my DEVONthink. I've left open one database. I've got my inbox, and my inbox, we've discussed, processes my screenshots. So let's forget the inboxes. Don't need to worry about that. But I have got here my asset management database, and the reason I've left that open is so I can show you what's working and likely what isn't working. Oh, Tracy's with us, and Adobe Illustrator's coming out on a birthday. But she doesn't want it for a birthday. No. We need a party for your birthday. We don't need Adobe Illustrator. Absolutely not. Anyway, good to have you with us. She's on catch-up. Right, so I'm showing you this because when I started looking at DEVONthink, I wasn't using it for asset management. I had an asset manager. But I'm actually finding what I did was I built an asset management database inside DEVONthink to prove it could be done and do a build with me. But actually it's proved so useful, it's unbelievable. So I think the best way to start corralling the assets is probably DEVONthink. So what I've got in my asset management is I have my inbox at the top. I then have a group of smart groups. And then I've got my standard organisation system, which is projects, areas, resources, archive. Right, just showing you how amazing this actually is when it comes to working. So if I open up my projects, I've got some screen caps that I took from Dark Noise to talk about it. I have some assets for the DEVONthink series. Oh look, MacBites 134. Nothing in it yet.
Don't tell Johnny.
Don't get Jonathan excited. There's nothing in it yet. But you can see in After Hours 94, which is tonight, there is. So these are projects that are active, things that I'm actually working on. And in here, this is all of the assets that we've seen tonight. I've used these in the presentation, etc. And the good thing about this is, what was happening prior to using was simply you'd take a screenshot, you would dump it in a folder somewhere, and then use it in the presentation. But the issue became, what on earth do you do later when you're thinking, oh, I had a perfect image for that? You can't remember what show number it was in. So I end up opening up the Keynote files and going back and having a look, and we're on show 94. There is about 88 Keynote files to go through, and some of them have upwards of 200 slides in them. The chances of finding it's tricky. So what I started doing with this was, as I found an asset that I wanted to use in the presentation for tonight, I'm throwing it in a folder that is called MacBites After Hours and the show number. I'm taking it a little bit further than that, as you can see in here. So this one was the email that I showed you, and it says Adobe Illustrator on the iPad now in App Store. This one is just named the date and time that it was taken, but it should probably be named something sensible like Adobe Illustrator. Can't spell Illustrator. Now it is the App Store. The other one's saying on the iPad now in the App Store. I've still got a T missing, haven't I? Oh, come on, Illustrator, right? And it's not the app. It's the App Store, not the Mac App Store. Now, the benefit of that is if later I'm looking for, which I will be, think about it, the week of the 21st, it'll be, oh, that came out this week, need to talk about it. I've already taken the screen cap. What was happening before is I'd take it again because I'd long lost the other one. So by putting it into DEVONthink and naming it and or tagging it, I'm able to find it and reuse it, which means I can get more work done, which I'm always happy with because it's not taking me as long to find the assets. Now, some of them are a little bit different, like this one here. This is actually for use next week, so it needs to move into next week's folder. But even when it gets into next week's folder, in here, that doesn't say clothes to me. So I'd have to be thinking about the metadata I wanted to add to that. Now, I could actually change the name, but if I do, then I'll lose the fact of where that came from, which was Pixabay. So I could do with keeping that name so I can do a comparison, but maybe adding clothes or something like that to it. So basically, the point I'm making is in here, I'm taking the time to say these were Envato freebies, and this was iOS 14, and these were the Evernote assets. So if I need them again, which I probably will, because when Evernote comes out on the Mac, I'll show you the Mac version. We look in here, here's the picture of Ian Small. There's the iOS 14 thing. That does not help. So if we put in the iOS 14, that definitely helps. Strawberry, I'm going to find it. Strawberry, I'm going to find it. So point being, this is my general asset management system. Once I've finished with a project like 94, which I will have done, that goes into an archive of After Hours with its brethren. So grab that there and put it in there. That's just for the para system. Doesn't need to. But the reason that I do that is I'll find it no matter where it is. And it means that the only things that are in projects are active projects, rather than fishing around somewhere where I've got 100 folders and I'm looking for content. So I had a look at this system and I thought, I'm liking this. This could work for this project number 13. Because in a way it's asset management, but you need to take it a little bit further than that. But it's worked so well in here, that's what I thought I would do. So let's actually create it. And then you can tell me what you think should be in it. What would you put in a project for this kind of job? So at the moment, the working title is project number 13, which I will put in there. And that means we get the standard blank database that we have had all the while we've been looking at DEVONthink. Now, when I say what to put in it, obviously I'm going to need to put in it the assets that I corral from 2007 to 2012, some of which were in the iBook, which means I'd need the iBook. But I wouldn't put the iBook in here as an iBook. That wouldn't actually make much sense because I wouldn't be able to view it. So I definitely need to corral content, but first things first, what would I do in the database to add structure to it before we start? The very first thing I always do hang on, right, mouse, where have you gone? The very first thing I always do, if you look in the asset management, is I create a group called Smart Groups, and then I put all of my Smart Groups in it. So, for instance, in here I have my after hours posters. Everything from 92 to when I finished, which is the 1st of January next year. These are only the ones that are 1280 pixels by 720. If I want the featured image for the blog, that's a different size, and I have a different smart group. And if I'm looking for the after hours email images, they're all in there as well. If I'm looking for live sessions, they're in there. And the beauty of it is, and I have others as well, but the beauty of it is, I don't even need to know where it is. So let's say I'm looking for the MacBites show art at 1280 pixels. I've got that magic shortcut key, which is Option, Control and G, and I can put in show art at 1280. I don't even have to type the full thing, and there's all the show art. So having tested this, I know it works brilliantly. So for this new project, that's definitely the way that I'm going to go. So into project 13, first thing I would do is make a new group, and I would call that Smart Groups with an underscore at the beginning. In fact, there's 2 underscores. So I can put these in there out of the way, and that's where all my Smart Groups are. But the next question is, where do you go from there? Because what you don't really want is to just start dumping stuff in there with that magical "I'll sort that out later." Because let's be honest, when do we ever sort that out later? Do you ever sort that out later, Mike?
Sort what?
Anything and everything.
No.
Something told me that that would be what she said.
No, I have a folder called To Sort.
I have one called TBS, To Be Sorted. And sometimes, but probably not. So if you have any idea as to the structure before you get going, or to put some structure on it, it's probably a good idea. So the first thing I needed to do to think about that was, right, do I think about the assets first, or do I actually define the project? Defining the project seems like a lovely way to go, doesn't it? So I would probably create, in fact, this is going to be the one that I actually use, so I will create, and I'll put 1 underscore under that. This is going to be project management. So everything to do with managing the project is going to go in there. The next thing that I love to have is a journal, a project journal. So I will put in a project journal. You may think, if you're journaling, and there's an L on that woman, why don't you do it just in a journal app, something like Day One? There is a benefit to that, and there may be certain things that I put in this project journal that I then copy and paste out of it into a journal. But it's actually much more beneficial to have it in here. Now, you do have a couple of options when it comes to the journal, because we did have where we can go new from template, and we've got a journal entry, but we also have in here an actual journal, which we've created somewhere. Daily journal. That's an entry, I think. There was a daily journal. There was a journal thing. I remember it. There was. It's in there, wherever. But at the moment, I don't really know what format I want that in, so I'm going to leave it alone. But it's enough to have the project folder there to remind me that I do want to journal the creation of this project. Because to be honest, what I put in there can form part of the finished product. We can look back to the first entry, etc. One thing we can do is go up to new from template, and we have a journal entry option, which will put it in that format, and then you type your journal entry. So starting project number 13, and then you will put some data in. In fact, what else can I say about that? And it's actually MacBites after hours. And we've already got the date and stuff. We've even got the time. But that's the kind of stuff that I put into the entry. I'd have a think about it in terms of the format I want for the date, because that's not sortable very well. I would think about it, but it's enough to get me going. I can sort that out later. Just enough to get me going. Now, in terms of the content, that brings about working with folders. Now, folders are called groups in DEVONthink, as you well know, because I am forever getting it wrong. But groups, folders, whatever, same thing. And I thought, right, how best to organise the assets I expect to be putting in here. And I talked about it with Mike, and it was like, how on earth do we try organising it? Now, if every file was properly named, we could rely on search to find stuff and just dump everything into one folder. But let's be honest, things are not likely to be properly named, are they? And I said, well, how would we organise this? Would we do it by year? And we came to the conclusion we probably would. So I could put in here a new group, and I might want a top level, which is years. So because I might want to organise other things by other means, but this is going to be the years, right? So I go into years, and obviously I need the years. So now I need to create 2007, 2008, 2009, all the way through to 2020. Bit long-winded, isn't it? Is there another way to do it? Well, obviously you have your data new from template. And I thought there's lots of things in here, and some of them are very close to what I need. So if we look at them, not productivity, it's the registers. You've got 1 to 31, which is basically days of the month. You've got days of the week, not much use. You've got months, but there's no years. So I thought, I could have sworn there was, that would make sense, but no. Because you would have to tell it, what year are you talking about and when do you want to finish? So it could be done in here, but the fact is, it's not. That's not available from in here already. So I thought, back to the drawing board then. Now I know that there's only 13, 14 of them, but you could have hundreds. So I thought, right, we need a better way of doing it. Right, this is the better way of doing it. If I create a new folder on here, and I call that years, just so we've got something to go on with, and inside it I then create a new folder, and I know I'm going to start at 2007. And then copy, paste, 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 until I've got enough. And I have no idea. That's too many, but never mind, it doesn't matter. Okay, so there's my folders. But then I've got to go in and name them. Now there are options that you can do inside Finder. I've never bothered with them because I have an app called a Better Finder Rename. And this one's fabulous. So if I just drag these folders in, you can see I've actually used this in anger, real project, the Brooklands years. I needed to have folders for 60 years of content for Brooklands 196. And this was how I did it. I just dragged in 60 folders and then I used the magic in here to rename them. So I'm saying to it, produce me a series of names with sequence numbers in. Prefix the number with the Brooklands years. No suffix on it. Start in 1961, so with the number 1961. Add 1 every time you move on to the next step. And make sure there's 4 digits. And over here in the changes section where it says change to, I get exactly what I want. Now they're not done at this moment. That's just a preview. And that's not what I want. But it's a starting point to have a look at. So I actually just want the numbers. But I don't want it from 1961. I want it from 2007. And that's all I need to do. So I started off and it's going to change that to 2007. It's going to go all the way up to 2029. That's scary. Won't Jonathan be 40?
Will he still be a millennial at 40?
A millennial. He'll be a millennial. Okay, now I don't need the rest, but I can delete those. But click Perform Renames. And that's it. I just close it down. And when I get back in here, they're all done. And I will delete the ones I don't need. But I will leave 2021 because, you never know. Project might take that long. In fact, the way it's going, if it's like lockdown, I better leave it till 2029. But there's my folders. Now, these are folders. They're Finder folders. There's nothing in them, but they're Finder folders. Now, that's not groups in DEVONthink, is it? Or is it? So let's bring this back, and we're in our years group. And all I'm going to do is grab these folders from Finder and drop them into DEVONthink. And now I've got groups in DEVONthink, which are the years. And that feels great. But at this point, I needed to think, okay, that's good. You know, I open up my years and there are my actual years and I'm looking at each individual year. Then I thought, are you going to want any more detail? Do you want to put in months, for instance? And I thought, I'm not sure. I don't know, is the answer to that. I don't know. But on the basis that you might decide that you need that with all of yours, I thought, right, well, that's simple enough. You choose a year and you go back to the data and you say new from template. And in your registers in here, months is an option. So all you need to do is click on that and it'll have a think about it. And it does put them inside a folder called months, which you could leave inside 2007 if you want, or you could take the groups for the month and drop it inside 2007, delete the months one, and now when you go into 2007, you've got all the months, which is fantastic. But I'd have to do that for every one. Now, it's not that bad. There's like 13, 14. It's not that bad. But I got thinking, is there another way to make that happen? And there is. So just for completeness, and your example might be slightly different in terms of it's not years, but, you know, whatever. Whatever yours is, if it fits into a pattern, a predictable pattern, don't just think in straight lines of, oh, I can do that in DEVONthink, or oh, I do that on the file system. How about mixing and matching? And by that I mean, over here, we've got the 2007 one. So if I delete all of the others, because they're blank anyway, this was what I started with, one group. What if I take the months out of here and drop them into there? That actually works. They're folders. Folders and groups, same thing. So now I've got 1 year with the months in. What if I copy that and paste that multiple times? And I probably way overdid it again, but never mind. They now have things inside them. Everyone's the same, but the names aren't quite right. So I go back to my renaming app. And although I could tell it to drill down, I'm not going to. So let me just grab all of these and drop them in there so I can show you how you would go about that. Right, it's only going to work. Hang on, wrong one. What are we in there for? Where's my renamer gone? There we go. Right, let's bring that back. It's in here. It's going to rename the folder, the top level folder. And that's because down at the bottom, you can choose whether it renames files, folders, and subfolders, and the contents of subfolders. But I don't want to do that, and the default is that you don't. So the tick is out of that box, and everything is absolutely fine there. It's going to start with 2007, it's going to down to 2028, and the contents will remain unchanged. So I'm going to perform the renames and close the app down. Now I've got a neat and tidy structure in here with the months. But remember how we did it. The years came from Finder and were renamed. The months came from DEVONthink and were dragged out and renamed. So if you wanted to create a folder structure, and I actually did this, it was a living nightmare when I started it. I wanted to create a structure by year, by month, by day for backups. And that was when I realised that Finder was not my friend with this, but DEVONthink is. Because inside January I could add 31, and inside April I can add 30, and inside September I can add 30. So I'm giving you this example, but your example might be completely different, but you may find that by linking together the Finder and what DEVONthink can do, you can create some kind of hybrid solution like I'm doing here. Right, having got all of those and saying I'll go up to 2021, so from there to the bottom we'll just lose them, and then I will drag those in. So back into DEVONthink over here. In my years I will get rid of all of those. And in my Finder I will add these and I will drag those into the years. Okay. So that was just really, don't rely on DEVONthink no matter how fabulous it is, and don't rely on the Finder no matter how fabulous that is. Link the two together and I've got a solution, and that took me a lot less time than it would overall. It's taken me a little bit of time to explain it, but in terms of actually doing it, it would take less than a minute. Okay, we've got the years in. Right, what else do we need to do? Now, one option in here, you should be screaming at me at this point, is that the best way to do it? And this I can't tell you right now, I don't know. Because one option would be, instead of groups, what if I created tags? Now, we came across a situation. We needed to interrogate our data, and it did not warrant one of Mike's fabulous solutions. It was a question we had of data that we have had for 10 years, and what the question was, and this was about middle of July. The question was, when is Apple's event in September going to be? Based on the previous dates of events. And we've got all of the previous events dates, but they weren't in a format that was actually usable. So we looked at it and we kicked it around, and it was like, yeah, that's not going to work. And I said, I don't want the dates of all Apple events. I want the dates of Apple events that happened in September. If I wanted to interrogate this system for the same thing, show me all the content that I created or assets that were created or that live in the September folder, but not in any specific year, in every year, there would be no way to do it. It would be awful. But you could tag it. And that's what we actually did. We extracted, I think, first, and then manually tagged all the September events with September. And there is a good outcome to that story. Bearing in mind, middle of July. Apple had not said it was going to be late at this point. We got the dates together, and Labour Day fell awkwardly in terms of Apple putting an event on, which it didn't for the majority of the years that we had data for. We looked at it, we picked a date, and I said it won't be that date. It's too close to Labour Day. So I said it'll be the 15th of September. And when was it? It was the 15th of September. So sometimes you're making predictions from the data you're putting in. You're not just throwing it in and thinking, oh yeah, that happened at such a point. So think about the structure of the data. I'm thinking at the moment that's what I want. That doesn't mean that's what we'll end up with, but it's a starting point, and it's as good as any other starting point. Other thing I would be thinking about at this point, be it inside the month, inside the year, or just notes to self or something. Now you tell me, let's have some of this in the chat. Where would you put a note to self to tell you to find a poster for an event from September in 2010? Where would you put the note? Would you put that inside 2010? Would you put it inside September? Would you put it somewhere totally different? Where would you put that note, which is a note to you to say, find this asset? Where would you put that? Might not even be in DEVONthink. Would you put it somewhere else entirely? Do you have a note system that you can rely and trust on? Shall I ask Mike? Do you have a note system you can rely and trust, Mike?
I have several.
So they all work?
In their own inimitable way, yes.
What he means is, no. What he means is, the minute he's got more than one, there's a crisis. I would probably, in here, have a project inbox. And if you notice, that's something that we don't have at the moment. I might, after that, change it, drill down a little bit more. But I think at the moment, the best place to put it is probably in an inbox. And at the moment, we don't have an inbox. Now, having said that, we do have an inbox. We have an inbox up here. But that's the receptacle for anything that's coming in that's in the anywhere else. And you just drag and drop it and say, just put it in the inbox there. So probably what I would do down here is to put a new group and just put notes. And then I may or may not do that, which puts it a little bit higher than everything else. It's a basic inbox. And in there, I would then go in, and it really doesn't matter which one of these you choose. It's totally up to you. Probably plain, you could probably get away with plain text. And this would just be a note to me in terms of an asset. So it would make sense to name it something so you can use it as a hook and find brethren. By which I mean, right, let's say CP at the beginning. And what that means is collection point. So collect something. And I want the MacBites live poster from September, like that. Now, I could also, because the majority of that is up there, right, I could either copy and paste that in there or actually give myself more information. You know, it's all right, very, very well saying that, and what was that all about? Now, back in September 2010, Apple's stuff was a music event, and the poster had a guitar on it. Other than that, I've no idea. But I've got enough information that I can go find it from that. Next thing I might want, what else might I want, Mike? What else haven't we seen in years? Oh, I know. This is a good one. MacBites #1 in iTunes. We've actually got a screenshot when we were #1 in iTunes. A screenshot of MacBites at #1 in iTunes podcasts. So I'm leaving myself notes, a breadcrumb trail for me to go find things. And that's one way of doing it. Like I say, there's many, many other ways of doing it. Totally up to you how you actually go about doing it. But notice that it's all in the same project. So when we start doing this, which we're going to start doing today, we'll make notes about things that we need to find. Other stuff we'll actually put in, and then we'll decide where on earth that needs to be. But you're building the framework at this point. So back in the journal entry, I'd probably be tempted around here to put in, added all the year folders, added months inside them, added a note system. Trust me, future you will thank you. Right, so we've got somewhere to start working on, and what we're going to end up with is something that's got as many assets in as all of this. So if we look at probably archives, that's the assets for the individual shows. It's probably in here. These are all the after hours posters. These are all the chapter markers that I use in the show. Everything is neat and tidy, and I can find everything within seconds. Anything that I need, I can find. And that's the kind of thing that we're looking to build up. These were the Time Flies ones that we used this week. There they all are. And this one is the MacBite Show Art, of which you know there's hundreds of them. But irrespective of how many copies of stuff there is, so look at the Hijinks one. In fact, the Science of the Bin collection. Oh, crying out loud. But, you know, look how many different ones there are. You could say, well, it's easy. You're looking for a certain size. And that one is a certain size. Yeah, and so's that one. It's the same size. I need to find the right format as well. And that's where the smart stuff comes in. So if I am looking for that, remember you've got your magic here. And you are looking for show art of a certain size. So I want the big one. And it filters it right down. It makes more sense to look at that in relation to the asset management database because we haven't got that much content in Project 13 yet. But we've built a little bit of a framework for when we do. So now we need to go and collect the assets. And some of them, maybe I've got. Maybe I could find that poster. We'll find that out. What I do have is this that we looked at last week, which was all the stuff that I had. And I did find that I had a folder for the source, which seemed grand at the time. And then I found this with multiple copies, and I had this as well. And all I did was I just totally stuck it in here and thought, right, I'll do that. I have got the internal workings of it, which is not great to work with. You know, dropped image 1, it's not good. All of that's going to need definitely renaming before further. Need to shut all these up again now, don't I? There we go. So I could start with here, but it's going to be very hit and miss as to what the stuff actually is, and I'm going to be all over the place trying to organise it. So I thought I would show you a trick, which is, this is the iBook which will open in iBooks Author. So it's not the iBook that you hand off to people, the derivative of the iBook. This is actually the source version of the iBook. In fact, looking at it, I don't think it's the full iBook. That's the demo iBook. Let's go find the right iBook. The copy of the iBook. There we go. That's what I want. And there's a couple of things that you can do in here. So I'm looking for assets that I would want to repurpose. Right, text is definitely one thing I'm going to want to repurpose. That's going to be interesting, isn't it? Because of the format that it's in. It's got links. It's got styles. How much of this can we actually get out, and how much is going to need to be redone? Oh, and there's Jonathan. Look at this. His favourite podcast of all time. Oh, I love you, Jonathan. Right, so I've got all this information, and I'm going to need to deal with it, but I'm not worried about text at the moment. I'm going to be thinking more about images. So let's look through what we've got. How about Mike and his thong? Or Mike with his iPhone. His very first iPhone. Look at his little face. What was his iPhone? 3G? Yeah, iPhone 3G.
3G.
Do you know, you look at that iMac and it's not changed, has it? It's barely changed. It's just not got a silver bezel. That was a long time ago. Right, I could, of course, start trying to manipulate this. Take it out of here. But there is the inspector, and I know this has been missing for a long time from the iWork apps. But there's stuff in here that can actually be quite useful. So let me get rid of that. Right, in here, it gives you a lot of information in terms of, now some of this is going to be irrelevant for our purposes, but in here we need to look at it and think, you know, what have we got in here? Is there anything that can be used? Can we get it out of here? So always have a look through here. This is, I wish this, you can have multiple instances of this, but at the moment it's that deprecated, it's probably not worthwhile fiddling with it. But this is your inspector where you can start working with it. It's got the object placement stuff in here, it's got all kinds of things in here with it. For what we want, not much chance of that doing much good at all. There would be if it was in Keynote. So hold on to that thought. At the moment, it's not going to do as much good at all. So we have this. What else could we do with it? Well, the only thing that we could do is actually copy that out. We don't even know what that file is actually called. But one quick way to create a file, if you are in the situation like this with, you know, I've got this file, but that's about it, is if you go into the preview app. So we'll just open that, and Command and N. It will take what's on your clipboard and it will create a file of it, and all you need to do is save it. And that would have the benefit, although there are other ways of doing this, that would have the benefit that I know what that is, and I, at the point of saving it, can save it and give it a good name. So I'm going to save it. So this is Mike at the iPhone 3G launch. Now, I don't want it to be a PDF, probably started life as a JPEG. And what I can do with it in here is, I happen to have, where's it disappeared to? The inbox, which is the DEVONthink inbox, in my sidebar. And I will take that to the best quality I can do it and save it. Oh, it's got much bigger. It's still blurry though. Look at his face. Right. That's a bit long-winded, but it's one way of working if you only have maybe a handful and you want to name them properly and have it all organised. That's one way to go. Obviously, it would be a long job, wouldn't it, going through this and doing that with it? It would, but it's one option. Right, let's have a look at where that ended up, which is, it should be in the global inbox. And all I would need to do is, well, I've got a couple of options. I could move it to the project number 13 inbox and deal with it later, which would actually make a lot of sense. Or I could start fiddling with it. Right, so the first option. Put it in the project 13 inbox, and it will disappear from the general inbox into the Project 13 inbox. Then all I would need to do is at some point I'm going to have to face facts. These are going to have to be put in the right place. If we decided that the right place for this would be the year it was bought and the month, when would that be, Mike? Let's put him on the spot. Can you remember?
What?
What year and month did we buy the iPhone?
2007.
No, we didn't. It was 2008.
That was close.
Right, it was June 2008. Right, by putting that in the right place, you know, if I want to talk about this chronologically, that's fantastic. But it gives me a problem as well. In 2010, and I think that was also June or July, but I'd have to check, there was the iPhone 4 launch. We did not have a 4GS. It's a long story that involves O2 and me getting very cranky with them. But we didn't have the 3GS. So, I haven't got a photograph of this, but there is a video of it. Okay, so in June 2010, I'm going to put in here a note to remind myself of the iPhone 4 launch. And I'm also going to put, in fact, that'll do. That'll do for the title. Then I'm going to put some information in. This was the Revenge of the Car Park. So that's the MacBites show. And there is a video on YouTube of the queue. Right, now, I've got two completely different things there. I've got a photo of the iPhone launch, and I've got this that was about an iPhone. Right, in 2011, and it was either September or October, I'm not sure. Right, but I'll put my note in there. I'm going to put, this was the iPhone 4S launch. This one, we went to Liverpool, and it was MacBites Siri. We only got one. Mike didn't get one, but it was MacBites Siri. And what I do remember about it was the carpet bagging that went on. It was horrible. And we went in, was it Starbucks? Was it Starbucks?
I think so.
I think it was Starbucks. So what I'm doing is actually putting down what I remember as I go. Now, we've now got 3 notes. This one does say iPhone launch. This one says iPhone 4S launch. And that one also says Mike at the iPhone 3G launch. But what if I've got one and it's like 2 items or something like that, but basically it doesn't have the word iPhone in the title? Or a situation could arise where it does have iPhone in the title, but one's a photo and one's text and one's a blog post and one's something else. And some of them are to do with the iPhone launches and some aren't. Now, one thing that we touched briefly on in all of the sessions on DEVONthink was using tags. And this might be an opportunity to use a tag. Because I'm going to, and now this is me now talking to future me and saying to future me, how are you going to want to find this stuff? Because wading through it in folders and subfolders, no. So how do you want to find it? And what are you likely to query for? And I am likely to query for iPhone launch. And I can't search for iPhone launch when it's got 3G in the middle. I can't search for iPhone launch when it's got 4 in the middle, or whether it's got 4S in the middle. Obviously, I could search for all of them. I reach a point where I can't remember which iPhones they were, though. So it's possibly a good idea to create a tag and call the tag iPhone launches. And then tag the other items that are iPhone launches with the tag. And that gives me the benefit that I'm not going to have, I've chosen not to have a folder structure that's got iPhone launches in it, because I've decided the best way to store the data is by chronologically, by year and then by month. But by adding in that iPhone launches, at some point, let's fold all that up, at some point in here, I'm going to want to see all the iPhone launches. So if I create a new smart group and I call this iPhone launches, And I don't want it to search in smart groups, but I do want it to search across project number 13. And I'm looking for where, and in this case it would be a tag, because it's all going to be tagged and organised, isn't it? And I'm looking for iPhone launches, and OK. When I open that, it shows me all of my assets in here, and I can see them organised just by month. So it filters out the rest of it and shows me just the individual places that they are. That actually, in turn, and this is what happens. This is why I started off Project 13 very early. Can anybody tell me what the problem is with that? I'll even let Mike have a dabble looking at the problem with that. So I've created a smart group. It works. It's bringing back exactly what I want, but there is a problem with it. What's the problem? While I take a drink. Mike's having a ponder now as he looks at it. Have you all nodded off? Have you all done a Jonathan? Have you all done a Jonathan? Any idea, Mike?
Yeah, it's not in month order.
Well, it is. But there is a problem. What's the problem? There's 2 Junes.
Yeah.
They're different Junes. We know which June it is when we're looking at it in the folder structure because the year is at the top. But once we've created our smart groups, I don't know I have no idea which June it's talking about. Now, I happen to know the first one's 2008, the second one's 2010. But that's not obvious from here, is it? No. How on earth do we fix that? And the obvious answer is you're going to need to put the year at the end of the month name, which we can do. But if we were going to do it, we wouldn't have done it here, would we? So this is where you have to think, that's not going to work. And you have to go back and basically start again. Which is, the easiest way to do that is back in here where we've got our years. Right, we basically need to add 2007 to the end of that one and 2008 to the end of that one, etc. And these actually came from DEVONthink. That doesn't mean that we can't rename them back in here. And if I do the 2007 one, that's fairly harmless. So I'd add these in. Now see, that isn't actually going to work because I'm going to lose the rest of it. This is where it starts to get tricky. I do want the sequence numbers, but I really need it to leave the text alone at the beginning, and it starts to get complicated. So you see what, this is why I started off with this, because we're going to hit brick walls like this repeatedly. If we hadn't have actually created the smart folder, we would never have known that at this point. Now, what are we going to do with this? Right, we would need to add some text to it. We want to add text to the beginning, but I actually want to add sequence numbers to it. So I'm now going to have to fiddle around in here, which is probably not worth doing at this point. Let me have a look. No, I'm going to need to do something. It's sequence numbers, but I need to leave the name alone. So I don't want to produce a list. I want to add some sequence numbers at the end. And at the moment it's picked up 2, so I want it to be 4. I don't want to start with 1, obviously. In fact, do I want sequence numbers? No! Look at that. I had sequence numbers before, but no, that's not going to work. So actually, I don't need that. It's going to be a whole lot simpler. Let's go back to the text. And I don't want it to say mass at the beginning. That's when I'm processing the mass. I want to add some text at the end. And instead of 2009, I want that one to be 2007. But don't forget to put the space in. And then perform the renames. So this is the kind of thing where you need to develop this iteratively. And then that would have to be done per set of folders and then dragged in there so they've got the names on them. That might actually, you might look at that and think, oh, it's too much messing. Too much messing. I'm just going to have a folder for everything in 2007 and everything in 2008. And that's completely up to you. I will take the time in the week and I will sort that out properly, because I do think at the moment this is probably going to be the way to go. But what we'd like to see in the iPhone launches is this. If we are in June 2008, we would like that to have 2008 on it. If I go to 2010 and go to June and put that in, and I'm just doing this manually so you can see the difference. And then in 2011, when MacBite Siri was born, let that have 2011 on the end. When we go back to our query, which is our iPhone launches up there, that now makes total sense. And we can dip into whichever one we want. Still no one's saying a thing. All my browsers crashed, one or the other. Or we're not even broadcasting. I've no idea. I've no idea. So that's one way to start. The other things that I've got in here are this book within this one. This copy that I've got has all the assets in it. So rather than doing the copying and pasting thing, a much better idea is to right click it and no, you don't do that. I'm going to copy that one again. So I've got a copy of the copy, which is 281 meg. So give it a second to catch up with his little self. And I'm going to put there Project 13. Right. What I'm going to do with that is change the extension so it has a zip extension and then open it. And that's going to use the archive utility, which will actually open it. So it's an iBook that I have changed the extension of. And now the archive utility thinks it's a zip file, which actually it is. It really is a zip file. It just didn't have a zip extension. It had an iBooks extension. I'm expanding it, which will create a folder. And then inside the folder, I will have all of the assets in the book. And what I could do with this is then just drag and drop the assets in and sort them out in there. Some of them are logical. So episode 30. 41, 41, 43, 44. Me as a vuvuzela. It was fabulous, wasn't it, Mike?
It was.
Some of them less so, but it's not a bad place to start. You also have assets in here. You need to make a decision whether you're bringing these in or not. But what I'll do, have we got anything that does make total sense? Let's take these iStock ones and some of these in. Let's take these. And what I could do, in fact, you could take the lot if you want, but I'd be careful doing that. But we'll just take some of these and put them in Project 13. And then whip to it. And these are the things that I then need to sort out. So I can see them in the preview at the bottom, should they decide to preview on me, which they should. There we go. Mike set up when he had a laptop. Oh, bless. And what else have we got? Oh, the webcam. Oh, a session we ran 2012. Good grief. Look at that. Inbox 0. Did you do that or did I? I think I did that one.
Can't remember.
But you did see I had Inbox 0 this week, which is fabulous. And here's some other assets that I used in it. So some of these would be for events. So there's an iPad event. Okay. So that's 2011 and it's March. So there's a perfect example. Instantly, I know exactly where that needs to be. Oh, that was Liverpool as well. So I'll put that in there. And then when I'm looking for it, I know exactly where it's going to be, ready for me to reuse it. There's iPhone 1. Now, we know iPhone 1 was 2008, so we can put that in there. And that's what I would need to do. I know that sounds like a complete annoyance to have to do before the start of a project. The reason that I need to do it is I didn't do it back in 2012. Simple as that. Future me, which is me now, is rather aggrieved with 2012 me, but I understand why it happened. Because it was just a case of let's get it done. Let's get it done and get it out the door. So what I will have done for my homework by next week is I will backfill everything from there into the system in DEVONthink. If I hit any brick walls, like the names of the folders and things, I will let you know what they were, and then we will move forward from next week. I will show you how I fix any brick walls that I hit. Your homework is to tell me things, get in touch with me and let me know when did you find MacBites and how did you find MacBites, so I can include all of that in it. I'll also be looking at extracting all of the text next week. So that's going to be the big project for next week. Oh, lucky me. But we now have a DEVONthink project to work with, a real one. So if I hit brick walls like that's great, but it doesn't have the year on it, I'm going to have to fix it. It's not a demo where I can say, oh yeah, well, you'd have to have thought of that. I'm going to have to fix it because this is going to break down if I don't. So that was the demo that I wanted you to see. So you're seeing totally behind the scenes of all this. Right, but let's get back in here. Let me whiz past that lot. And where's next week's gone? It's moved. Swine. There it is. We will be back next week. I'm not going to say who, but I happen to know it's a bit of an important day for somebody. No, can't say anymore. Can't say anymore. And yeah, I'm missing something tonight, aren't I? I can't whip out and say I've got a point.
No, because the umpire said it's null and void.
Kim, umpire supreme, said that was null and void. Can I just say I think I definitely deserve this point and could put a very compelling case to the VAR on it? Because there was a week Jonathan fell asleep and then woke up just as I was changing the board. And he claimed that point, that was totally unfair, wasn't it? Mm. But I let him have it, which is very good of me. It is. Anyway, in the meanwhile, we are going live every day this week, aren't we? Again. And I am finally... We have had people notice. We're up to date as well, apart from tonight's show. But we are up to date as of last night, which is amazing. I'm going to have to keep on top of that so Jonathan doesn't get terribly, terribly behind. We love you guys. If you love us, give us a thumbs up. It really does make a difference with YouTube. Right, if you want first dibs on everything, including the upcoming sessions, which are... the export persona in Affinity Designer and blend modes and layers and masks in Affinity Photo, then that's the list you need to be on. We do mention those on the MacBites list. MacBites gets all of the MacBites contents as well. So for instance, there's a mail every day reminding you about Marooned, but that does not go out on my list because people would have an absolute fit. If you would like to chat with us in between shows, we are on Slack. It's fabulous. We have such fun in there, don't we? Do you know on Christmas Eve, it's our Slack birthday? We opened up that on Christmas Eve and you all joined us and it's been fabulous. If you would like to join us, it's macbites.co.uk/Slack. And it is where we carry on the conversation. But we're going to be back next week. Oh, I usually go out at this point and collect my point. I can't collect my point.
No.
I'm very upset. Very upset. Right, I'm going to come out of there.
First world problems.
It is a first world problem, isn't it? And she said I'm going to come out of there and then it won't let me. Okay, we'll do that instead. Right, and I'm going to put that back on with that and then I can see the chat. Whee! Yes, that's all updated. Right, have I got any questions now? I don't see any questions. It's telling me there's people there, so if you could just say hello so I know you're there, that would be rather good. That would be rather good. Have all of us had MacBites had a birthday in lockdown? Whose was the first one?
Yours.
Is it mine? Well, mine. Did you realise the 19th of May is the best day to have a MacBites birthday? There's 3 of us have MacBites birthday on the 19th of May. Erwin and Mrs. Simon.
You and Mrs. Simon.
Yeah. We do. It's a great day to have a birthday. And then it was... We had birthdays in June, didn't we? Lola had a lockdown birthday. And... Oh! Kim's birthday, but that's not till December. You had a lockdown birthday. You didn't think you would. Can I just say, if you've got a birthday any time in the next 2 years, you will probably be having a lockdown birthday. Which Kim decided lasted all week, which is great. So I love that idea. We've told everybody that. Oh, I know who else had a birthday. Kath. And Kath got a show as well, didn't she? Nina had a lockdown birthday, mate of mine. And Rachel had a lockdown birthday. So, yeah, we've got loads of people.
Debbie S has a question.
Right, okay. I can't see that in the chat, but feel free.
She's not typed it yet.
Oh, right. This looks like it's potentially hung. Oh,
Paul Murphy's got a birthday coming up soon. reading between
Just
the
let me
lines.
tell you what's happened over here. I thought you were all not talking. And I've just gone to the page and it had hung. So now I'm going to have to catch up with all of this. And you were all screaming at me, the year, and you were totally right.
See you, Deborah.
Oh,
Enjoy your wedding.
good night, Deborah. Right, I'm going to go back and I'm going to answer all of these questions now. I found them, crying out loud. Where did I finish off? Where did it get stuck? No, keep going back. Good grief. There we go. Right, it was just after that. A lockdown birthday. Right, let me catch up. Oh, Neil's in it. It's in October. We need to know when that is. A few weeks. And Tracy's in the future. Let's have a look. Oh, Paul knows he's working from home till at least January the 4th. Is that 2021, Paul? Just asking. It'll be fabulous. It'll be your new home in your new office. It'll be amazing. Lockdown here, apparently. Made the mistake of just looking at the news. Don't look at the news. 56 million of us going into lockdown.
Seeing that.
Makes me wonder, because what's the population? About 65?
About 56.
No, it's more than that now. I'm wondering who the 10 million are that aren't in lockdown. Unless that's the 10 million of us that are already in lockdown, but they're not counting. But whatever, either way. No, we're not allowed out. We're not allowed to use public transport. We're not supposed to meet up with anybody. You can take the kids to school and that's it, but you've got to wear a mask, basically.
Can you just tag the folders with the year for smart folders? That's Debbie's question.
Yes, you could. You could do this in any one of any number of ways. And at the stage at the beginning, I mean, you could say potentially, oh, and it's a child of X year. It's whether you actually want to see it there so it's obvious without having to resort to cleverness in the iPhone, in the smart group thing. I'm not actually 100% sold, I'll be honest, on the months inside the years. But it does make sense if you're looking for something and you have an idea of when it was. So I would know, for instance, in end of October, early November 2007, it was the Leopard launch. And I would know exactly where to go to look for that without having to run queries and stuff. So I settled preliminary, I would say, on the years and the months. You could drill down even further and put them in the days. Whether you want to do that or not would depend on what you're going to do with the information. So one thing is there are anniversaries of things. So it's the 20th anniversary of the iPod next year. It was the 10th anniversary of the iPhone 2017. It was the 10th anniversary of the iPad this year. And they are on a specific day. And if you are collating information like blog posts from back in the day and images from Apple back in the day, and it's important to you that you know what's coming up in the next X number of days, and there's multiple assets, then maybe by month is not granular enough. Maybe you would like the days inside it. It depends what you're doing with the information. Tagging it is always an option. I think what puts me off with tags is it's not good practice to have tags and folders with the same name, or tags and groups. Because in a way, a tag is just a non-physical group. Tags were actually not in DEVONthink 1. When they were added to DEVONthink 2, it was very much DEVONthink were kind of pushed into it for people who wanted to have things in two places, if you know what I mean. But DEVONthink were saying to them, but you could replicate. You don't need to add a tag, etc. You don't. But it was one of those things that there were tags in everything else, and therefore they just had to go with it. It's a bit like Notion. Backlinks and these automatic links, that's Rome. Rome aren't trying to be Notion. Notion, why are you trying to be Rome? It's going to be determined by what you intend to do with the data. It could be I redesign this completely. Now I've started it. I'm going to have to think about it in the week. But that's the whole point. It's a real behind the scenes thing. and you'll see it change, and I'll explain why I changed. Notion was where would you put the note? And yes, if you were deciding to manage this somewhere else, that's exactly where I would put it. Can I quickly show you that? Let's have a look. This is something that's rather new. I've never demonstrated this because it's too new. It's totally too new. But is that new? It's not even running. Come on. There we go. Right. Let's have a think about it. Come on. Right. I'm going to just have a look at it and see if I could actually demonstrate this. Yes, I probably could. I probably could. Right. Let's go up there. Oh no, that won't work. That's not a good one to show. Where could I go in here? Just to show you. Trying to find a way to actually be able to demonstrate this. Let's do that. And let's giddy Jonathan. Okay. Actually, this is actually true. This will be happening. So give me 1 second to set it up and then I'll share my screen. And I need the moon thing. You're wondering why I need the moon emoji, aren't you? Right. This is to do with managing something that's going on. How would you actually manage something that's going on? So if I share my screen and we lose DEVONthink. So am I right in that was what was being talked about, Mike? That was it Debbie saying that she would put it into Notion? My chat is jumping around like crazy. Yeah, Debbie says I was thinking in Notion and Kim said she'd put it in Notion. Right, okay. Where would Mike put the note? On a post-it note under his desk. When I would need to know to look for it. So if I needed it on Friday, I'd put it in Friday's date. All good answers. All good answers. Is the upper inbox sort of like a to be sorted later folder? Yes, it is, Kim. It is absolutely that. So you could just as easily put it in there. But if you have some kind of other system to make things work, then that's great. I have been using Notion, but things are getting hairy scary in terms of things I need to do. So I've put another system together, which isn't not working. Let's just say that. Let's not be overly ambitious. So I'm going to share my screen again. This is what I'm doing at the moment, but do not take this as me saying, oh, holy hallelujah, this is the best thing since sliced bread. This is just what I'm doing at the moment. So this is things which I've never used in my entire life. Never used things at all. What I started to do, as you can see with the inbox at the top, I started slinging things in it. Random notes, all sorts. And the reason that I used things for it was just easy. It was easy to send to it. You can email to it. You can use fast inbox on your desktop. Just to show you the fast inbox, it's that fast. I use a shortcut key, boom, it's there, and then that will just go into the inbox or anywhere else that I want to put it. So the fast capture. That's the reason I was using it. I did not do anything else with it. But you can see I have started adding certain things to it. And one of the things where it's really working is the Brooklyn stuff that I need to do. So these are areas, and Brooklyn's is one of my areas. And if I go into there, these are all the things that I need to do for the upcoming shows. So 6 days from now, I've got to do the Brooklyn's Years 1970. Now, because it's in here and I've got this checklist, Mike can't see this. This is personal to me. But he can see how it's all coming together. So that's what it looks like for me. And there's no reason that couldn't be in Notion. But for this reason. I'm looking at that. Okay. I've clearly, in here, it shows me what I've done. And one of the things that I've done is I've scripted the segues. So I'm ready to record. That's the next step. Where am I with Brooklyn's Years 1999? And I need to script the segues for that. I've got a Simon and Garfunkel special coming up next week. I'm at the point that I've scripted that as well, so I just need to record it. This gives me a very high level overview that I can just quickly go into. And now I need to script those segues before I do my next recording. Because I'm ready with 70, I'm ready with the Simon and Garfunkel special. I am not ready with the 1999 one, and I want to record them all together. So I have direct links in here that take me straight to Notion. So this top one is, that's Google Spreadsheets. That's the management where I tick off that I've actually done this show. But this one will take me straight to the Brooklands Years 1999 and let me script it. That link is also the direct link for the segues in there. And in there, because I need to see that when I'm recording it. So this is how I would actually manage that. Now, I appreciate you're going to take one look at that and think, why is that not in Notion? And it's not in Notion because how could I possibly know at a glance, one click, where am I up to with the Brooklands Years 1980? I've not started it. What about 1990? Not started it. But I can tell you that the rock and roll special is half done. Which is ludicrous because it's not until the 10th of October. But I can very quickly get from one to another and know where I need to be up to. Very quickly. Which is faster than Notion. So I might actually put that reminder in here. I may have in here, I haven't at the moment, but if you look at the MacBites things in here, I've got the MacBites system. I've got After Hours 94, which is today. I've got the next After Hours, which is coming up. You'll see I've got the 2 MacBites, 133. Jonathan's going to be giddy. Because it says 1 day left, which looks like we'd actually be doing something with it tomorrow. But by the time he's seeing this, tomorrow will be yesterday. And he'll think he's missed a show. I was severely tempted to go into his first Marooned, wasn't I? And say, have we all listened to MacBites 143? But would I do that to Jonathan? Would I? So I may well have a project under MacBites that is project number 13, and I might actually put it in there. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what app you use. It's whether it works. And this one is working for me purely because I can open up the Brooklands thing and I can see things that I'm doing. Westlife. I mean, what do I know about Westlife? Not much. Not much is the short answer to that. But enough to know I've actually already sorted it. I've already, it's in the can. Basically, I just need to do the segues, and that is much faster for me than Notion. Now, could I replicate all of that in Notion? Yes. Could I make it that I could get that information in Notion at a high level where at a glance I can tell you exactly where I'm up to? Yes. But to do it, I'd need to totally redesign the structure of the table. And this system in here just kind of organically developed from, oh, I need to do a Brooklands Years, I'll just throw it in. And then I'm like, oh, well, I could put some, the process. And then I thought, oh, I could automate that and I could make a template. It kind of grew and it worked. Maybe one day I will take it to Notion, but at the moment it's staying where it is because it's not broken. And it's actually meaning that the shows, like tomorrow's shows, they're all done. Last week, if you recall, I had 8 hours of shows to put together after I'd finished After Hours and try and get some sleep because I had a 10 o'clock, if you remember. It's all coming back to me now, isn't it? So just a quick aside as to how I would actually have done that, which I would have mentioned at the time, but I'd lost the chat because it stopped. I thought everyone had died. Right, let me... Oh, Kim, mention of a kayak. You know what that means? Lady pipes. And you lost your first one down the toilet. Do you remember when that nurse knocked over the water all over Dad's? We had this district nurse and she was an absolute idiot. And she knocked this glass of water all over my dad's iPhone. And I had to scoop it up, jump over the dog. It was very artistically impressive. Dive into the kitchen, get it in the rice. And my dad's like, never mind, my leg might drop off. Is my phone all right? Oh, so water and phones. No, never ends well. Right, is there anything else I've missed in the chat while I try and catch up?
Don't think so, not that I've seen.
Tracy, 1 week back at school and there's 5% have got COVID outbreaks. That doesn't surprise me at all. I'm stunned that they didn't take the decision. They're talking about the children will lose out on education. Education doesn't mean face-to-face. Education can happen just as much online. and if it's safer for all concerned. If every child was an only child, it would be a lot easier. But when they say they're in their year bubble, that doesn't help when they've got 4 siblings back at home in 4 different years, does it? They're in one bubble at school and then in another bubble at home. This bubble thing was never going to work, was it?
Yeah.
But there you go. Right, let's have a look. Wow, Neil, what have you done right? Can you come over here and teach teach Boris? Not a single positive case. Wow. A school closed for a day every 10 to 20 days, but low local transmission. I don't know if that's good luck or good judgment. I really don't know. Oh, it's raining. That's brilliant. You don't hear it raining much. There are places in America where clearly it rains. Chicago, I believe. That's a windy city, isn't it? But you never actually see it siling down like it does here. Except when you've got those things on the coast. Your hurricane season. But generally, I never see it rain. I hope it gets the smog down. Ready for Kiva. Right, I think I'm caught up. Kim says, oh, Brooklyn's till at least the 14th of November. That's a Westlife special, you're quite right. Yes. We've got some dodgy ones in there, haven't we? But we've done, like, the really classy ones. We've had a request for the Simon and Garfunkel one. There's another one that isn't actually in there yet, because it's further than that, I think. In fact, if I go into the Brooklands one... yeah, I've got some upcoming ones that aren't even shown because there's more to it, if you're with me. And I need to work out why that one's not showing yet. But he's upcoming. I'm not that brilliant with things, honestly. I'm not. Oh, wasn't that Judge Ginsburg? Have I got the right lady? Wasn't she one of the Supreme Court justices? Or is that somebody totally different? Oh, Neil's done all of his iOS 14s and watches and all sorts. No, I've only done my iPads. Have I got the right lady? Shall I look that up?
Yeah, Associate Justice of the Supreme Court.
Yes,
The
name rings a bell. I think I've seen her in a programme. 87, wow. She always seemed very, very savvy. Was she in a programme as well? Did she give advice in, like, JAG or something? I think I might have seen her in that. What's it did? Who's the other one? Oh. She was in... Madam President... No, not Madam President. Madam Secretary. Not Condi Rice. Oh, I can see her face, and I cannot remember her name. It's quite a tricky name. It's a woman, though. That is sad. Very, very sad. She's probably the equivalent to our Lady Hale, isn't she? Of the spiders. Lady Hale with the brooch. The one who told Boris he was illegal. There aren't many that would have done that. Is this all coming back to you, or have you totally forgotten? When Boris was taken to court over Brexit... and it was like a foregone conclusion that the court would back Boris, and the court promptly didn't back Boris and came out and said it was illegal. When he prorogued Parliament, somebody's not been taking any notice of the proroguing of Parliament. He shut Parliament down so they couldn't debate something, don't you remember?
Yeah.
And some woman who'd got a load of abuse on Twitter for it took the government to court and she won. And Lady Hale gave the speech and she had like a spider brooch on. And she became known as like Spider-Woman.
Oh, right.
She's the nearest equivalent that we would have to that.
I think I missed all that.
Oh, you must have blinked that day. Poor you. To make it to 87, because pancreatic cancer is one of the most serious, isn't it? Oh, she's done well. Has anybody bought a new watch? I haven't, no. Contemplated it, decided nothing wrong with the one I've got.
No, but mine's dead.
You killed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not dead, is it? It's just not charged it, dead.
Charging.
I will probably... Didn't know it was written segways. That's the way I'm spelling it. That sounds like a good movie. We've probably not got that one over here. Probably something like, you know, they wouldn't be interested, but we would, rather than watching the tripe that they put out. We have the pleasure shortly of, I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. Only they're not going to Australia this time, they're going to Wales. Probably many of us have thought about getting out of Wales. Do you know Wales would have every right to tell them not to go? Mm. Why don't they just stay where they are? In fact, Strictly's coming back as well. I don't know how they're doing that. Maybe they're doing it as like line dancing. When they're not actually touching each other. We shall see. We shall see. Kim thinks Debbie will be getting a watch. Go on, you know you want to. I would have done, but I just took the decision. You know, you get this one, then the next one comes out, and that's got some new feature that you would really love to see. And this is what I thought last time about the always on thing, but I haven't missed the always on thing. I have mine always off. Now I could have it always on, but you know, I think it would probably affect the battery life very negatively. So I've not bothered. I've also noticed weirdness happening in terms of something's missing off there, so now I need to fix that. Like I've not got enough to do. But never mind, we made it to the end of another show.
Got a question.
Oh, do you need the sketch file opened? I haven't even looked at it, Paul, but thank you very much for the offer. If I can't get it opened, I will ping it to you. That is very, very kind of you. Neil says he thinks he'll leave it. No reason at the moment. Series 4 seems to work well, and the blood sat levels are not an issue. No, blood pressure maybe, but not the blood sats. Again, I think there might be a lot more in the next one. And, you know, there'll be a watch every year, just like there is a phone every year. The iPad's a totally different business. Trying to work out the best time or the optimum time for you to buy an iPad is a nightmare. I didn't bother with the one in March because, one, it felt really icky, which is exactly what Jonathan said. He said he would have bought one, but for the fact it felt really icky. It felt icky. Two, again, they didn't give you much time to work out whether there's anything there for you. It was like, and you order it now. And if you don't order it now, then it's on 6-week back order. I know you can send it back, but that's not the kind of person that I am. I don't buy stuff unless I'm 100% sure that I want it. I'd send it back if it was broken, but it's not within my nature to just say I've changed my mind. And when I did look at it, and it's like there's a LiDAR camera, and I'm like, well, that's cool, isn't it? Not really bothered. The rest of it was so similar, I didn't bother. And I'm glad that I didn't bother with that one. I'm glad that I got the 11-inch when I got it, but now my issue is, will it be November? Will it be March? It's tricky. And I know, you know, for me, it's not as important, but I know for Paul, who's trying to make a decision, he would like it sooner rather than later, and I'm not surprised. But Tracy's totally the other way. She would like it as late as possible, and that way she's still got the latest model, which I can totally understand. If I hadn't have got the model I did in the autumn of 2018, I probably would have bought in March, and then I would have been in exactly the same position as Tracy. And the last time Apple did that, where they brought one out in March and then updated it for Black Friday, was iPad 3. And I was really, really annoyed. I felt that the changes they made could have waited. And it was a cynical ploy for people who may have thought, I'm going to wait till March to get them to buy it for Christmas. And those of us who had already bought were very aggrieved. That really was not on. And I think we're possibly in that position now because the ones they've brought out are already faster than the Pros. It makes no sense. Makes no sense. But at least it means we have an event in October to look forward to. Just a matter of when and how I can fit it in with one that wasn't on that list is my Dolly Parton special. So I'll make sure it's not Dolly Parton night. Neil got stung by the Retina iPad too. It was a beautiful iPad, but it really did leave a very nasty taste. New iPads. They compared published Geekbench scores, and it appears the Pros are still a little faster than the new Air. So it's just technically that they're not. They technically don't have the latest chip. Will Apple wait until next year? Do you know they might not, Paul? Because surely in March, they're going to want to push, on the basis people can't buy, unless they've got a money tree in the garden like Timmy, they can't buy a watch, a phone, an iPad and a Mac at the same time. So they want to kind of spread it. And there may well be an Apple Silicon Mac in October, but it feels a bit soon. So, in my opinion, the March one is more likely to focus on Apple Silicon. Would they want to release an iPad, the iPad Pros, then and compete with them? Because I can imagine the headlines, should you buy the Mac or should you buy this? They want you to buy both. So the way to get you to buy both is to put them out at different times. And if the Apple Silicon isn't ready for October, and the iPads are, then it makes sense to sell the iPads. And yes, people like Tracy are going to be very annoyed, but it wouldn't be the first time that they've done that, would it? So there you go. We've no idea what's going to happen. It's just going to happen, and that's that. Speed's not relevant. In a way, you're right. But I think when you're spending that kind of money, you want something that's the latest model. It's as simple as that, for as long as possible. I mean, until that iPad came out in March, mine had been the latest model for 18 months. You can hope you're hoping to swap watches without your wife knowing. There's a trick to that, Paul. You know, when I was at work, we had these computers and they were like 286s. They looked like fossils. And we had some newer models. And the older ones, they all went in for revamp. And the newer ones came back like cleaned. The case was cleaned. But the old ones, which were absolutely shocking, they just swapped the cases. They put them in new cases. You should have seen the secretaries. They were falling over themselves for the new ones. And I'm like, don't take that one. It's the oldest there is. Oh, it looks shiny. They just wanted the box. So the trick is, Paul, buy the most amazing strap. Never know the difference. There you go. Pro tip. I'm going to do that. I'm going to buy myself a new strap just because I can. And that way I'll feel like I've got a new watch. Although I've just realised that my shiny new watch is, well, my shiny old watch, which is going to look shiny and new, I had to uninstall drafts and it's upset one of the faces. So now I need to fix that, which I didn't need to fix before, and now I do. But there you go. Right, okay, we need to get off, don't we? And have something to eat. Hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you found it useful. And we'll set about sorting out next week's while I'm sorting out all of my music specials as well. Don't forget, I want your MacBites story. I want it. The wife didn't notice for a year. BK thought that was very funny. When the wife finds out, when Mrs. Neal discovers it, oh, the subterfuge. You know what could happen there? I'm trying to palm you off with food that's a year old. She wouldn't notice if it was the same colour. Totally agreed, Paul. Oh, let's egg Paul on here, I think. And nobody must tell Mrs. Paul. That must never happen. Oh, Kim, love the show. That's fantastic. Don't forget your MacBites story. I want MacBites stories because I've got to sort the text out next, haven't I? This Project 13, we are going to be we're going app hopping. We're going to be hopping from one app to another. DEVONthink is purely for the collection of it. We've got to head off into other apps to make the magic happen. Hence it being quite a long series, but I guarantee you it will be worth it in the end. Because it's a total true behind the scenes and it's got to work. There's none of this, let's just pretend that worked. It's got to work. There you go. But for the moment, it's good night from me.
It's good night from me.
And we will both see you next time, guys. Don't forget, we are marooned tomorrow. Followed by Brooklyn's, the theme of which is clothes.
Or no clothes in some cases.
Oh yes, Patricia the stripper. Enjoy. We'll see you soon.